Welcome to the Tenet Podcast. I'm Todd Pearson here with my friend and partner, coming to you from the Road of Enchantment in Rapid City, South Dakota. You know him as quite possibly the most interesting man in the world, the one and only Wes Brown.
Todd, how you doing, my friend? Oh my God, it's April.
I know, right? I'm doing good, man. I got a little bit, I don't know if it's allergies or some kind of like head cold type of thing going on because my son Zane has some kind of head cold. I was thinking about maybe calling up Will Smith and have him slap it out of me, but
there you go. Yeah. He'll slap the piss out of you and then he'll yell at you from afar. What a dipshit. Anyway, I wanted to say, so you're like the month of March, right? You came in like a lion and now you're kind of going out like a whimpering little lamb.
I guess
with the cold.
Is that what you're saying? Yeah. No, I think it's a combination. Maybe it's allergies. Maybe it's a head cold. But anyway, I got tea and
great.
And
so
if
do you fall on the Will Smith part or do you fall on the Chris Rock? Was it just a joke and suck it up, or did Chris go too far?
You know what? I think they're both human and they both made some serious messed ups there, and I'm actually kind of over it. I've been kind of, it was interesting to see the comments, but the bottom line is that they're both human. They both made mistakes and they should, I think they're dudes, right? So they'll probably shake hands and, in a couple of weeks, they'll be over it, or they'll never talk to each other again, but that's the way guys roll. Right.
I kind of thought Will Smith went gangsta.
He definitely was pissed. But again, you don't know what was going on. Like, who knows what went really down, And
I didn't watch the whole show. I didn't see the segment. So I caught basically caught like working up to the slap, and then Will Smith's little presentation afterwards. And that's all I've really seen. And if anybody's wondering, everybody right now that's listening is going like, oh my God, that was like, this is like a week ago. Well, this is actually, it's actually old news, but this is being recorded the morning of Monday, the 28th. So it is current news.
Right.
But by the time you hear it, it's old news and everybody's over it. And God knows who else Will Smith has slapped since then. So,
like 150 years ago, there would have been a slap and then there would have been two dudes standing in a field with guns, like shooting each other. Right. Like full on duel.
Full on tombstone.
I don't know. Yeah. Whatever.
Yeah,
who cares?
Nobody.
Nobody. There's bigger stuff going on in the world. There's dipshits, bombing preschools halfway across the world, or there's an ice shelf that just fell in the ocean in Antarctica, the size of New York. So I think there's bigger things to worry about in this world.
All relative, you say?
Guys that
keep things in perspective.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, let's get on with it.
Let's do it.
Remember, you can always find out what we're up to via our social media on Instagram at Tenet Podcast, our Tenet Podcast Facebook page, and of course, our website, tenetpodcast.com. We're ultra excited to talk with our guest this week. He's well known in the world of BMX. He's a photographer and he puts the I in itinerant. He recently published a book of his photographs from his travels and the stories behind them, entitled For the Experience, Volume 1. Welcome to the program, Robert Barranco. Rob, how are you?
Doing great. How about yourself?
Good, man.
Yeah, doing great.
Glad to be here.
Got to spend a little time with you at the Small Press Festival. A couple weeks back and see this incredible book that you've put together, which we definitely want to talk about this evening. This book, how did all this come about? Like, how did you decide that you?
Hey, Todd, wait a minute. Before we get, I'm so curious now. Rob, where do you fall? Chris or Will Smith? Are you on the Will Smith side or Chris side? Or are you willing to take a stand? Maybe
there you go.
I think I'm so impressionable that I'll be scrolling on the internet, see someone make a point, and I'm like, they got a point. Go to the next one. Someone makes an opposing point. Oh, they got a point. And then I don't make any decisions.
That's a good, it's walking the middle road is really good.
Exactly.
When in doubt, be Switzerland.
That's usually what I am.
There you go. Let's not pick sides.
Yeah.
God bless them both, right?
Yeah, right.
All right, Todd. Sorry, I just had to get that out of the way because I know our listeners are curious. So.
It is interesting because there's so many different opinions on this whole thing. It would be interesting if we have another guest coming up, and it'd be interesting to have the female perspective as well, because I've seen some very differing female perspectives. So everybody has their own take on the whole thing. So
yeah, for sure. Anyway, sorry about that. I just had to throw that in. So back to the book. Todd.
Back to the book. We're talking about this book, For the Experiment. How did you decide to go ahead and self-publish your own photo book?
Well, it wasn't supposed to be this big or even what I would consider a book. I really just, when I started shooting film photos years back, it was always like $5 more to get prints. And I'm like, yeah, sure, why not? I'll get some prints, put them up on my wall. And I just kept doing it. And I had all these photos, and some were on the wall, some were in my drawer. I was like, I have like enough of these. I'm like, I should do something with them. The more I'd see like people making like zines and stuff of their photos and just putting something small together, even if it was just 10, 15 pages, I'm like, oh, this is something I can do. One of my neighbors at the time too was encouraging me, like, oh, make something with all these photos, like put something out there. Nothing big, just kind of like, I'm a fan of print. Just why not make something in print? Like even when I was like younger and would obsess over something, I'd like ask my parents to buy me a magazine, and I get a magazine subscription so I could see photos and read tangible things. So I had all these photos on my wall, and I was like, all right, let me start like organizing them. And I like got string and 2 thumbtacks and made different rows down my wall and started organizing it kind of like by continent of like, all right, like this will be North America, this will be Europe, this will be Asia. Whatever photos were on the wall were photos that would make it in the book. And then as I was putting some up, I was like, all right, this is a good photo without context. And then I'd like come across one and I'm like, all right, this is a pretty average photo, but there's a pretty good story behind it. So I started putting like little tabs on it. Like, all right, like this one has, like the ones with no tabs had no story behind it. They're just going in there. Ones with a tab on it had a story behind it, or either a long story or just like an extended caption. And started like toying with the idea, kind of procrastinating, just like, all right, I'm organizing it. I've technically started it, but who knows when things will come to like fruition at all. Kept doing that for a while. I was like, all right, I'll like cut it off at some point. I'll like start putting things together. And when I started having more downtime, I was like, all right, let me actually like organize these things. A lot of the photos I had the digital copies of, and the other ones were only on CDs. And I realized once I wanted to get the photos off of the CD that my laptop didn't have a CD port. So I went to Best Buy and got a little CD to USB converter, got all the photos off, returned the CD to USB converter, and started going at it. I really just started like piecing it all together, even just in folders, not even like in any form of document, just like a folder of photos that will make it into whatever this project is, photos that won't, and the photos that will, categorize those into different continents and whatever. And figured it might be, maybe at this point, I'm like, all right, it might be like a thick zine, like not necessarily a magazine, but not really like a 5-page booklet either. I hadn't even started writing for it yet. And then I was as I kept adding more and more, and I'd be like, all right, well, I'm working on this thing. And I thought I would just do it with the photos that I had that existed already. And that would be it. But while I'm putting it together, I'm still traveling, still shooting photos, and still ending up in these scenarios that I found that were worth writing about. And I'm like, okay, well, maybe this will just be an ongoing project of sorts. While putting it together, I realized it might be moving towards the direction of like a magazine type thickness, a soft cover, maybe 1 to 200 page thing. And that wasn't even considering the writing portion of it. And then I started reaching out to friends that have published books before and got in contact and was like, hey, I think I'm kind of near the end. Like, what is this process like? How do you get a book printed? I didn't even know the difference between self-publishing versus publishing. I'm like, do I need to find a publisher? Like, what's going on? And I spoke to a friend about it, thinking I was about done. And that was like 4 years ago. And I thought I was about done and was nowhere near the ending point, and kind of kept piecing it together, kind of taught myself in design, and moved out to Colorado from Florida. Again, thought now I'm really about done with this project. And I started looking at publishers, because I didn't realize at the time that basically by putting this together at InDesign, I was already in the stages of self-publishing it. And I was looking at publishers in Denver, going to all these old bookstores that were listed as publishers online, only to show up and they're like, hey, we're a used bookstore. We haven't published in 30 years. Try this other bookstore. I'd go to them. And, oh no, we haven't published in 30 years. We just sell used books. One of them eventually pointed to a rack of zines on the wall. And they were like, a lot of the zines on that rack, this guy, Peter in Denver, helps people self-publish, and some of them are his own. And they're like, maybe reach out to him. He can help you get this all going. And I reached out to him, basically said, my main concern was like, again, I don't know, like, do I need a publisher right now? Like, if I were to talk to a printer right now, they'd be using terms that I don't understand, all that stuff. I'm like, I need someone to just take me where I'm at and just bring me to conclusion, to print basically. And that was about 2 years ago. I reached out to Peter thinking I was done. And throughout all that, kept shooting, kept going on trips, kept writing. Peter basically was like, hey, you don't need a publisher, you're self-publishing, and helped me self-publish it. Brought me from a very rough draft to a final project, and taught me the terminology when speaking to printers, and he spoke to printers with me, and brought me to where I was now. All throughout that whole process, I was like, oh, like, let me write some, like I said earlier, kind of an extended caption basically for some of these photos. But what I ended up doing instead was I forget the word count, but I ended up writing a small novel, which added who knows how many pages. Just kept going on and on and on. Because like you tell someone a story in person, you give a quick summary. But as I'm sitting there writing it, I'm like going the whole thing is playing in real time in my head. And all these minor details keep occurring. And I'm like, oh, this happened. Oh, that happened. And then some of them were more recent stories, like that had just happened. Some of them were years ago. And I'm giving a whole new perspective on it and reflecting on how I thought about it then versus how I feel about it now. And I just kept going and going and going until I ended up with a small novel and however many photos, and ended up being almost 4-pound hardcover book. So
it's like 413 pages, right? Isn't that?
Yeah, I think the actual numbered amount was 419. And it's funny because Peter was like, were you trying to make it 420? Because we can add more. And I'm like, no, that like wasn't even intentional. Like, I don't even smoke. It was just a pure coincidence.
That seems like something Peter would say too.
Yeah. He's like, were you trying to make it 420? And I'm like, no, like that's actually not on purpose. Like,
oh man, that's funny. So how many years of photographing does this encompass? Like how many, not only years, but and then how many countries?
Oh, so I want to say the oldest photo goes 7 years back. Like it goes back to the first roll of film I ever shot, which again, as I said, some of these photos are like average to me, but they have a story behind them. So that's some of those ended up in the book. So I think the oldest photo is about 7+ years old. And I started working on it 4.5 years ago. So I think the once I decided start organizing photos on the walls, that goes about 4.5 years ago. And then the oldest photo goes about 7.5 years back.
And this documents not only your love of riding different BMX parks or skate parks all over the world, it's really a travel log as well, right? Your experiences traveling in all these different countries that you've traveled to.
Yeah. Which reminds me, I forgot the second part of the question. I never counted the number of countries that are in the book. I should. I think so. Part of my goal was to have, I'm like, don't stop until there's all 7 continents. Well, then COVID hit, and I'm like, well, that's going to make some international travel difficult. So I don't know. I want to say I've been to, I think 30 countries, but they're not all like some of the photos from some of those countries. Some countries I didn't take any photos in. Some are average enough to not make it into the book. But yeah, it was kind of like a lot of the trips were basically started from a BMX trip. Like, oh, let's go ride the skate park, and then just book a one-way ticket, go there, figure it out. Whatever happens, happens. And that's what led to a lot of the stories in there, because a lot of things go wrong and all that. But some of the trips in there are just like backpacking trips to Asia. No bike was brought, anything like that. And so a lot of the photos, like a lot of the early photos in there, I didn't even really know, like, what I was doing with the camera. I was just like, oh, nice souvenir, let me take this photo. And if there was something behind that photo, I'd write about it. If not, didn't make it in. But a lot of it was too, like, a friend of mine reminded me the other day when I was talking to him about it, that I had this one idea for a project before the idea of putting something together had started. We were leaving to drive from Florida to California, and then we had one-way tickets to Copenhagen. And like the whole thing, my friends and I do on trips is like, never pay for places to stay. I'm like, that's the easiest cost to cut out. I don't care where I'm sleeping. We'll figure it out. We'll meet people, we'll camp, and we're not going to pay for places to stay. So I'm like, oh, what if, like, I'm going to shoot a photo of everywhere we sleep this entire trip. So when we left Florida, whether we were sleeping in a car, in a skate park, on the streets, in someone's house, I took a film photo everywhere we slept the entire trip. And some of it was worth documenting. We put the tent in the full pipe of a bowl, and it ended up being like an incredible photo or an interesting story. And somebody let us crash on their couch or in a spare bed. And in the morning, I'm like, hey, do you mind if I take a photo of your couch? I'm doing this thing. Oh, yeah, sure. And then like I take a photo of their couch in bad light. And I'm like, well, I have this photo now. But so basically after 3 months, I had all those. And this plan of, all right, let me put this book together of everywhere I slept for 3 months, all over the world. Again, some of the photos were just too bland to want to. I'm like, that's not worth even printing. I'm like, yes, there's an idea and a concept behind it, but I have all these other photos that I shot that are worth printing, in my opinion. I'm like, so I scrapped the idea of the zine of everywhere I've slept for 3 months. And then it kind of went more towards the book of everything. And yeah, it kind of ended up being more of like you said, a travel log and loosely documented and trips and everything.
It's very cool. And I think it's really well done. How long have you been into photography? How long have you been a photographer?
I really started shooting photos I had a camera before, I want to say, but it was around 7 years ago that I really started just pointing a film camera at things on trips as a souvenir. And then just like, oh, let me take a photo. This would be cool to have, you know? And then the more roles I got developed, the more I understood what I was doing and what I wasn't doing, then kind of made it more towards like, all right, now I'm not like, unless it's a specific scene I want to document, I'm not going to just like I know when to shoot and when not to shoot. And then that moved over to like when I eventually like did need to shoot digital, whether it was for work or for companies or my own company, I was like, all right, like my understanding of photography, because coming from film I was like ready to go off the bat in some senses. In other senses, I was like, oh, I have a million options with digital now. And so, I mean, that's been more over the recent years. But yeah, I want to say I started shooting like 7 years ago, but didn't really know what I was doing for the first couple of years. And every now and then ended up with a good photo by accident because the light was good or what I was taking a photo of was worth taking a photo of. But yeah.
So what made you go film instead of just shooting digital from the get-go?
I think it was seeing a lot of people go on trips with a disposable camera and just get all these photos back. And I'm like, oh, that's so cool. You know, you don't see the photos till the end. And and some friends had like film cameras. I'm like, oh, like that'd be cool. And for my birthday one year, my mom had her old 35 millimeter. It was broken, but she got it fixed and gave it to me for my birthday. And that's what I've been shooting on ever since. And I've wanted to branch off to medium format and stuff. But well, first I didn't let myself before this book was done, because I was like, if I start shooting medium format now, I'm going to want to add all this into the book. And this has already gone from a zine to a textbook. So I need to not do that. And medium format just wasn't practical when I'm traveling with a bike and a backpack, and that's it. And that backpack's filled to the brim already. So I'm like, all right, like it's easy shooting like 35 millimeter on the road. And like some photos, and just about every photo in that book ended up from that camera, aside from a few disposables that I felt captured the story or the scene well enough to earn a spot on a page.
So it's a little bit of a mishmash between this 35 millimeter that it was a Nikon camera, right? Or it's a Nikon camera.
Yeah.
Multiple lenses or just one lens?
There's a couple. So it's 90% of it's shot on 50, and I have an 85 to 210 lens that is broken, and I don't know so it's like a fixed lens basically, and I don't know what it's stuck at. And I always assumed it was stuck at exactly 200, but then I shot 200 on my friend's camera the other day from the same vantage point that I shot something years ago, and I was like, oh wait, it's not 200 because this is slightly different. But it's stuck somewhere between 85 and 200. I'd say 180 if I had to guess. So basically like a 180 to 200 and a 50. And then maybe not even 10 disposable camera photos made it in there, but some of them made it in there. Yeah.
I love that, man. I love that because I came up shooting film, and then obviously I transitioned into digital. And I appreciate the fact that you have done this beautiful photography and put together this book. And you're not shooting some, really expensive camera. You use the tools that you had and made it work, and without a second thought to it. And I think a lot of people get hung up on the whole equipment thing, and you're just doing your thing. It sounds to me that this is the way you live your life. Like you're just utilizing the tools that you have at the moment without any like preconception of what's going on, not only with the photography, but also in your travels. Am I right?
Yeah. Well, I appreciate it. Yeah. I think a lot of people do get hung up on like equipment and stuff. Like it's funny. One of my roommates is a photographer full time, and him and I always talk about how like people will spend so much on equipment, but I feel like half the battle is if you have good light and you know what you're doing, you can make an incredible image on just about anything. So that's what kind of kept me from, once I realized what I was capable on the 35 millimeter, I was like, bringing a medium format would just add, I mean, I'll still branch out eventually, but I'm like, that'll just add weight to a backpack right now. And I don't have room for it. And I'll go back and forth between, oh, what should I shoot this on? What should I shoot that on? And so I kind of just stuck with what I had because it was working. I'm also, and all my friends would vouch for this. Like, when I find something that I do or that I like, I get stuck in it and don't change my ways at all. I'm like that with everything, not in a stubborn sense, but in a way, a stubborn sense, but of just like, I'll like what I like, and like takes a lot for me to branch out. And I think that is like you said, that does transfer over to like traveling and stuff too, is like, we'll set out to like, all right, let's not pay for a place to stay anywhere. Let's just like, this is going to work. We'll meet people. I think a lot of that too is made possible by bike riding, because in the bike riding and skateboarding community, you go to a skate park anywhere in the world, you immediately have something in common with someone. And like, as cliche as that is, but like I found myself offering people a place to stay before I even like know their name. And I'm like, oh wait, what did I just do? I have roommates. What am I like? And I'm like, you're cool. You ride bikes. Like, you seem normal. Come on. And that has led to a lot of situations that have made winging it on a one-way ticket without a plan possible. But being open for all that, and also being stubborn and like, no, we got this. We don't have to like just settle for a hotel right now. Like, my friend and I once found, we were in Sweden at the time, and one of my friends from the States I was traveling with was about to go back home. And my other friend I was with in Sweden was from Hungary. And he's like, let's go somewhere else. Let's keep going. I was like, I'm not fully out of money yet. Sure, let's keep going. And we found tickets to Israel. I'm like, all right, Israel isn't like the cheapest once you're there. Not the most expensive. Like, we just come from Norway, and that was about as expensive as it got for me. And I was like, we're like, all right, well, we'll just go to Israel, rent a car, and sleep in the car. You know, if we find somewhere cheap to stay there. And we're about like 5 days in, sleeping in the car, and it's like no less than 90 degrees every day, and it's humid. And I'm like, I didn't know a desert could be humid. And like, and you're in that all day, and then you go to sleep, and then you wake up sweating, you turn the AC on, fall asleep, and then turn the AC off because gas is expensive. And it's like, and then we're on day 5, and we're like, we could get a hotel. And we're like, no, we got like we've gone this far. Like, we got this. Like, and I'm like, why am I being stubborn right now? We could just split a hotel right now. I don't know. It's being like a combination of stuck in my ways and like, let's see how far we can go with this. Like, let's see how far we can push this. And then I think it's different in places like Southeast Asia, where you can't really just sleep on the streets, and a good hostel with the AC on and your own bed is $6 a night, you know? And I'm like, all right, well, it's
money well spent, right?
Exactly. Like, you pay extra to have your own bed, your own door, and for them to turn the AC on, and it's $2 more. And I'm like, all right, we can swing this. Like, I don't challenge myself in those scenarios.
Is it hard to find film?
It depends. I think there are times where, like, on a trip, I've had to like scramble for film last minute and just buy whatever roll is within the city that I'm in, which a lot of times is Fuji 400 from Walmart, which is fine. I've shot most of that book on Fuji 400 because it's accessible, and I wasn't planning on finishing a roll, and I need something real quick, and that's the most accessible. And because I don't want to shoot the expensive stuff and then end up on a mediocre like looking trip and just shoot a $40 roll of film. And I'm like, that could have been shot on something. So, and just cutting costs on traveling. I'm like, I'll shoot on the cheap stuff. And again, like I said earlier, I think if you have good light and whatever, you can make it happen. But I think in a place too, like in Florida, I would go to either Walmart or this old antique shop that would have all this random film. Half of it's expired, but still good. Like it still comes out. But in Colorado, like there's an abundance. I think just because, you know, people might be more apt to shoot in the mountains than Orlando, Florida. And like the place I drop off film at in Boulder, like they're constantly like there 8 different options of film, medium format, 35 millimeter, everything. So I think it also is just getting so popular again. Like, you know, vinyl's coming back, film's coming back. Everything is just like, I think it's popular again now, which it's not, is making it more expensive too, but that's with everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
So did you scan all this film yourself, or did you have somebody else scan it for you?
So when I first started shooting, I didn't know what I was doing. And I'm like, I'll just go to Walmart. They develop film, and got some of the worst scans I've ever gotten back, and didn't even get my negatives back. Then I started sending it out to this place in California. Around the time I started thinking like, oh, it'd be cool to develop and scan my own stuff, is around the time my lease went out in Orlando, and I like basically couch hopped / traveled for 3 years in Orlando while avoiding a lease. And I'm like, everything I own can fit in my car. I can't create a darkroom right now. So I would keep sending my stuff out. And then now, after moving to Colorado 2 years ago, I was still couch hopping at first, but now I have a spot in my back room of my basement that could be a perfect darkroom, but I haven't made it happen yet. So I've just gotten everything scanned by labs and everything. And while that was another thing I learned, it was in the back of my head the whole time, is I'm like, I got everything scanned at a standard resolution. Like, is this going to be an issue for print? I like talked a lot with friends and like, oh, what do you think? Would this be good? It was basically like right on the cusp. It would be nice to have it a little higher resolution for print, but I could get away with it. It was to the point I flew to Louisiana to get a second opinion from some of my friends there. I was calling them like, hey, what do you think? Like, not just on the resolution, but the whole book. I'm like, I think I'm done. I like want your opinion on this whole thing. And he's like, just come here. We'll just hang out and we'll go through the whole thing. I was like, perfect. That's what I need. And I kept extending my flight because I'm like, oh, what do you think about this? What do you think about this? And I got stuck in 2 hurricanes there because I was indecisive. And he had a high resolution scanner and scanned a photo, and it looked a little bit better. And I'm like, is this worth going through 7 years of negatives to get a slightly higher resolution scan? And I was like, maybe not. It's fine. I won't do it. And when I thought I was ready for print, I got a sample book from our printer. And when I show it to a friend that doesn't shoot photos, they're like, what are you talking about? But when I look at it, I'm like, it could be a little bit better. And I'm like, because I can tell the difference between a film grain and like a low resolution scan. And I'm like, it would have been fine, but it could be a little bit better. So I spent like 10 hours one day digging through 7 years of negatives. Just my whole basement was just covered in negatives. And every strip was just like, all right, this one has 1 photo. So I have to rescan this whole strip. And then one strip would have like 4 photos. Like, oh, perfect. That's like cost effective. But I have to rescan, like I'd be rescanning full strips just to get 1 image rescan. I was like in my head trying to calculate how much it's going to cost. And I'm like, it doesn't matter. I've gone this far. I'm going to put everything I can into this book and spend whatever it takes. So I brought all the negatives in. And while going through the negatives, I would find that, for instance, there's this one photo I shot of my friend riding. It would have been what I considered like the best bike riding photo I've shot on film, but I chopped his elbow. And I'm like, man, did I really chop his elbow? Like I knew I was cutting it close, but he was like framed next to snow and a puddle. So his reflection was there. I'm like, I really didn't think I chopped his elbow, but whatever, maybe I did. And then like 6 months later, as I'm going through all these negatives, I realized that the lab, which is an issue with having your stuff scanned elsewhere, I realized that the lab cropped it, and I didn't chop his elbow off. So a couple of photos like that ended up in the book because while going through all these negatives, I was like, oh, it wasn't me, it was their crop. And then I brought in all the negatives, and like a month later they were done, and I went to pay for it. And she's like, oh, like our sale for rescans ended 2 days ago. Like we could have really like saved you some money. And she's like, let me see what I can do. And like dug through the back and found a coupon code and saved me like $200 off rescans, because I was about to spend like $300 rescanning negatives just for a slightly higher resolution image on paper. But yeah, she hooked it up and was able to save me some money.
Nice.
Yeah.
So this sounds like it was a huge learning experience and learning curve, right?
Yeah. Because I didn't know a thing about InDesign. A friend of mine downloaded InDesign on my computer so I could like use it for the first time. And I was like, everything from looking up how to put an image into InDesign, and then just like made a very rough draft, and then learning about the printing process, and then Peter teaching me more about InDesign. And then everything from like me realizing like that when I was resizing on my photos, that when film is scanned, it's not all scanned at the same exact size because it's cropped slightly to fit into the scanner and everything. And I'm like, all these photos are different sizes. Like, and I didn't even realize that till like Peter kind of like helped me through all that and helped, like he standardized all the photo sizes, stuff like that. I'm like, I didn't know anything about it. I learned everything about InDesign to the exact quality I need for print and a resolution, to fonts, when picking out fonts, like legalities behind all that. And it's just stuff I didn't know anything about, and just like different types of paper. I'd been into all of this stuff before, but never knew the minor details because I never had to. Like, this kind of forced me into like, all right, what is the full process to like make a book with color photos in it and have it be as quality as I want without cutting corners, and learned way more than I expected to, which was good.
Yeah, I bet. I'm really curious about how did you select your printer? What was that process like? Then where did you end up landing?
So I was trying to do it. I was honestly like where I could get the least amount of books, because I'm like, I know these printers are going to be like, oh, 500 book minimum, 1,000 book minimum. And like there was like, so Peter had connections through people that had printed books, and started searching around and found like some in Spain, some in the States, some in Singapore. And like the best deal was like 300 in Spain, but I would have had to spend, I think, $25,000. And I'm like, well, first of all, I can't, even if I wanted to. And I'm like, and that's like, I'll keep searching. That's insane. And the other one was 100 books in the States, which I'm like, and it was a full like fine art book printer. And I'm like, that's great. That's the definition of not cutting any corners. But one of my friends I was living with at the time, he makes rooftop tents, and they're made in China. His like connection over there, like they all know each other. He's like, let me just ask my guy, see if he knows a book printer. And he asked him, and he's like, yep. Like responded, sent the contact for this one guy. So when I was working with Peter and he was looking for different printers, and I was like, I do have this one person I don't know anything about that just really print books in China. I wanted to do it in the States because that would have been cool. And 100 books sounded great, because I'm like, I'm going to go from like having nothing to do with selling photos to selling a massive book. And I'm like, I don't expect to sell that many. And the price and the China minimum was 300. So the price of those 300 in China was cheaper than the 100 in America. And I was like, all right, as long as they're quality, then I'll go with that. And got a sample book And I was like, all right, if this is the sample and they're insisting it'll be better quality than this, then I'm totally okay with that. Because I was like, the sample met my standards. So it was little things like I want the pages to be thicker. I want and then I wanted to do the rescans and stuff like that. And then once I got the final product, I was like, it was exactly what I wanted. And I didn't feel like I had cut any corners. And they accidentally, supposedly printed 200 more. And I was like, you were trying to get us to do 500 and I didn't want to. And now you accidentally print 500. So they were like, we can get rid of them or we could sell them to you at discount. So they sold them to me for discount. And I ended up with $500, which was good because they've done better than I expected. And I'm glad I have, 500 is still a lot, but I'm glad I have more than the minimal amount that I wanted initially. So.
How many photographs are in the book?
Oh, I wish I knew the answer to this. I'd say, there's 419 pages. Some of the pages have, I think the most one page has is 4 photos, but that's very few. Most of them have 1, and then some take over 2 pages for a full spread. And then some pages don't have any photos at all. It's just text. I would guess in the 500 to 600 range, I would guess. And that's the thing too, throughout several, while putting it together, I was like, this is a photo book. This is supposed to be what I consider my best work. I'm like, let me cut half these out. And I'm like, no, because that cuts half the stories out, because this time we had to sleep in this, what we didn't know was someone's yard. It has no good photos attached to it, but it's a good story. So I'm like, that's not what this book is. This won't be a highlight reel. This will be a documentation of the trips. And again, some photos have no stories at all. I just like the photo. But yeah, I would say in the 500 plus range.
It's a lot of photos, man.
Yeah. Way more than I expected, but I don't have any self-control with that stuff. That's half the reason I flew across the country to get my friend's second opinion. I was like, listen, I'm going to go through these. You tell me if because I couldn't look at it with a fresh eye anymore.
Yeah. There comes a point, right, where you just I just can't look at it anymore.
I don't know if this is good. This might be trash, or this might be way better than I expect. There was one photo that I almost took out and my friend's like, no, put that as a 2-page spread. And I was like, really? And both my friends were like, yes, absolutely. And I was like, okay. But I just couldn't look at it with a fresh eye anymore. Some of the photos I thought were good. After seeing them for a while, I was like, never mind, I hate this. And then I'm like, no, it's kind of good. And then another thing too was seeing it on a screen and then seeing it that's what helps when putting it together on my wall, however many years ago. A photo on my phone or computer screen that I thought wasn't much, when I'm going through the actual prints and I'm like, actually, I kind of like this. And a lot of those photos ended up in the book too, because I was just like that's what I told my friends in Louisiana. I was like, listen, I'm going to go through all these. Tell me if a photo is horrible and needs to come out. And I'll give you a reason, if there is one, of why it's in there. And if there's not, then boom, we're taking it out. I maybe got rid of 5 photos and left with a bigger book than I flew there with. And I was like, well, how'd this happen?
So did you ever fly to China and meet the printers, or did you just do this all remotely?
I wanted to, but we got in contact with them during COVID. So that was impossible. I think the province that it's in, I had been to before. And I'm like, I wonder how close I actually was to this printer. But no, couldn't make it out there. I was hoping to use that as an excuse to go to China again, but couldn't make it happen.
I'm always a process guy, so I would want to go there and just watch them print a couple books and just get just to see the process.
That's exactly what I wanted to do. And I was like, well, if they're sending a sample, I guess I can go off of that. And I really expected to get the sample and then nope, we can't go with them. Their sample photos look like textbooks, thin paper, all that stuff. And I'm like, I really don't know. But the sample impressed me enough where I trusted them to print the whole thing. And it worked out. Because I wanted to visit just to half as an excuse. But then that's another thing. I'm like, if I go there, I know I'm adding 20 more pages. because because that trip alone would just produce enough stuff. And it was kind of like COVID was kind of a blessing. Like I've been telling people too, I'm like, I don't think I would have finished it if COVID didn't happen, because I would have just kept going and going and going. And like, I would have never just sat down long enough to like finish it. Like I told myself, like, after I went to Australia, that I would cut it off. And Australia happened 3 years ago, and I just got the books. So just couldn't.
It's a process, man, right?
It is.
And until you do it, I don't think you realize just how much goes into it.
Yeah. And it's funny because I met someone at the Small Press Fest that has several different zines, and some of them overlap with like, oh, this is the same trip, but documented differently. And this is like this 5 years and 12 different zines and mini books. And I'm like, that's exactly like what like would have happened if I just wasn't like crazy enough to just make it a whole project. And I'm like, at times I was like, oh, like I should just do a bunch of mini zines, because I think that's so cool. As I was putting it together, and I'm like, oh, I can't put this photo, not this one. So I put that one in. And like, I just couldn't bring myself to make two separate ones. I mean, the smart business minded thing to do would have been to make 12 mini affordable books, but instead of one big pricier one. But I was like, at this point, it's like my baby. This is like this huge project. I don't care how big it is. I would go to bookstores and look for 400-page books to like look to see. I'm like, all right, is this ridiculous? Like, can I justify this? Like, I would like look at the thickness of papers, because I'm like, I'm like, oh, that's a pretty thin book. And I'm like, well, no, that's paper thin. Like, no pun intended. That's way too thin of paper that I don't want to use. So I'm like, let me find something with thicker, just to justify. I'm like, this thing isn't going to be like an encyclopedia, is it? And then once again, I got the sample, and I'm like, all right, like this is fine. I can do this. Like,
then they shipped it, and did it come via air, or was it on a ship?
It was on a ship, and my timing for everything was just fantastic. It was right when, I don't know what was going on with the government, but all the ships were stuck off the port of Long Beach, and that's where my ship was coming in. And I was talking with the agent, and it was there's a lot of broken English. And it was my understanding that the books were like on their way to Denver. And like a month later, I was about to leave for Florida for a little bit, and I didn't have the books yet. And I emailed them, and I'm like, hey, like, what day are they going to show up? And like, she just responds, books still on ship. And I'm like, oh, okay. So I'm fine to go to Florida for a couple of weeks. The books are not even on land right now. And that was a whole other learning process. I'm like, it was like $600 for them to get them from Denver to Boulder. So I'm like, well, I'm going to figure out how to not pay that, and like rented a van that Peter also recommended. Peter saved this whole thing. Tell me about this app that I can rent someone's van rather than rent a whole U-Haul, and pulled up to this section of the airport that I didn't know existed. And I was the only one not in a semi truck. And I just backed this little rental van up, and they forklift. The whole van just drops. And I'm like, I'm going to drive this thing home. I don't know. And that was a whole other thing of fees. And I'm paying all these fees that I didn't know existed. I'm like, I had to pay a port holding fee or I forget the terminology, but I'm like, I have to pay because this ship was stuck offshore. I'm paying for it. But I'm like, I don't know the terminology enough to question anything. So I just paid anything. And I'm like, all right, who knows if I got scammed, but I'm like, I just want these things in my basement already. I don't care.
So you pulled up in a special place in the airport next to where the Illuminati pull up, right?
Basically, right? I'm like, this is the part they're talking about. I'm in the conspiracy theory part of the airport now. Like, I drove so far past the airport, and I was still in the airport, and I'm like,
Why is the sign say Kansas?
Yeah.
Did you break it out like how much it costs from China to Long Beach and then Long Beach to LA or to Denver? Or is it just one big freight charge?
No, it was all broken up because the shipping cost was included with the books, not included, but they was like all factored in. And then I had to pick up another thing for them to get off the boat, and I had to pay something to pick them up. And I'm like it just was adding up. And like, I didn't want to know at first because I was like, who cares? I have to spend it. I'm already this deep in. But I recently added it all up and I was like, oh, that was more than I thought. But, that's what I get for going overseas. I think it still ended up being cheaper because if I went with the States, I would have had to charge like $80 a book, and that's ridiculous. And to even like make a profit, so.
Yeah, I have a friend who did a wildlife book, and he went to South Korea.
Okay.
To do his because the cost. I mean, it was just not cost effective to do it in the United States.
Yeah, and it's like quality still. And one of my friends works for a company that recently made a photo book, and I was like, hey, like, do you guys have your info like for that supplier? And he's like, yeah, but it's like 1,200 book minimum. And I'm like, never mind. Nope, can't do that. Like, so I was shocked to even find something for a 300 like book minimum, even though I ended up with 500.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's all, once it's on the press, it's all about, it doesn't take much to run 1,000 as opposed to 500. Yeah.
Exactly. That's what Peter explained to me too. He's like, once they have it and they run it, he's like, if these were to all be gone tomorrow, I could be like, hey, need 500 more. They'd be done in a day. Like they just hit the button and it prints again. So
I want to talk about the catalyst for all this.
Yeah.
You're known in the BMX world. You're an accomplished BMX rider, but you don't have like these mad like sponsorships, and you're not out there winning like all these big contests, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
When did you get the bug for the whole BMX thing? Was you a kid?
Yeah. I mean, I started like really riding when I was like 15, 16, which is like a lot of my friends started at that age, and some started like racing when they were like 7. And like, I just started like riding for fun and doing all these trips just for the sake of, I want to go ride that. And I like met a lot of people. I would ride contests in Florida, but kind of just for the fun of it. I was never like, like I'm training for a podium type thing. And I slowly like moved towards the main contest type of riding in BMX. There's different like disciplines, but like the main contest type of riding that people see on like X Games, ESPN, all that is the big trick riding, like multiple flips, spins, whips, all that stuff. When I first started riding, I was just like, into anything. And then like when I moved to Orlando and was just surrounded with concrete parks and started traveling more, I like gradually moved towards a preference of just riding big, like deep concrete bowls, which there are contests for, but I was never like, again, I was just like, going on trips for the sake of riding. And all of my friends started doing that. We would just go on trips, even if there was different riding styles. Like, this place has several skateboards. Let's just go there. And like that's how the whole trip to Australia came about, kind of like with my other friend that lives out there. And it was never for like like we need to go film this or we need to go to this contest or whatever. It was just for the sake of riding. And like through that, like I do ride for a company now called Tree. It sponsors me and some of my friends as well. And it's perfect because it's like, it's never like a pressured like contest result or content driven thing. It's like, we do what we want and we ride what we like to ride, and they're there to support us. It's just like the sake of like, all right, we'll film what we want and shoot photos of what we want, like riding wise. And like, that's how we can promote them and all that. So it kind of worked out to be exactly what we wanted to. And through all that too, I've met like just a bunch of people within BMX that have led to the ability to like, I'm going here. Who do I know there? Because like everyone's constantly traveling. And like I said earlier, you kind of get that immediate connection with someone that, okay, well, I met you once 5 years ago. Can I stay in your house next month when I come to your country? Yeah, sure. That type of thing. Just that immediate connection works. And you end up meeting people constantly that share that similar interest. So
through riding and meeting all these people and networking, that was the catalyst for this love of travel, would you say?
Yeah. I'd say like when I was like a freshman, like I always went on family trips when I was younger. Like we'd come out west, like we all lived in Florida and we'd come out west to Colorado, Montana, and just come to the mountains. And then I was in college. One of my friends was like, "Oh, you want to come to like with me to this event in Texas?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure." And like I had never done a big road trip with just friends before. And I was like, yeah, sure. Like, let's do that. And we kept it super cheap, slept on floors, ate peanut butter sandwiches, and spent like no money. And I'm like, oh, we can do this. This is easy. Like, this is so possible. At the time, all my friends had like very flexible schedules of like we had jobs, but we could kind of like go into work whenever. And then like, oh, we're going to be out of town, come back and like catch up on work type of thing. And we were lucky enough to just be like, oh, we're not doing anything this weekend. Let's go to Georgia. Like we get off work at like 5, go home, eat, think of like where we want to go, like literally like pull up a map and like look at like the southeastern United States. And we're like, all right, where are there parks like we haven't been to yet? And then drive there at 9 p.m., sleep in the car at a gas station or put the tent in the bottom of the bowl or wherever we could. And we do that just about every weekend, if not every other weekend. And it was really like showing like, all right, this is like super possible. Like we're keeping it so cheap. We're riding new parks all the time. Like that again, too, kind of like formed the way of like what we wanted to ride, because like we'd go up to Georgia and there's all these incredible concrete parks that like not a ton of people know about if you don't live there. And then that kind of branched off to international stuff as well. Like my friend that I drove to Texas with was like, he's Hungarian and he'd go back to Hungary in the summers and he'd be like, oh, he'd tell me always, oh, come back to Hungary with me, come back to Hungary with me. I finally like went one summer and we did the same exact thing. We like were lucky enough to have like a car out there because he lived out there, but just setting up the tent wherever and not paying for places to stay. And I'm like, wow, you can really do this like just about anywhere, granted within limitations, like wherever you deem safe in the world. And we just kept doing it. And I'm like, this is so affordable. And like we'd end up in situations that were like rough at the time, but ended up being hilarious in hindsight. Like again, like stuff like I ended up writing about in the book where, you know, you fly to a country without knowing anyone, you bring a tent and, you know, some stuff is like bound to happen. It just kept showing like how doable it all was on any type of budget. And granted, like that, we were lucky enough to have jobs flexible enough where, cause like we all worked for my one friend that I currently still work for. We had jobs flexible enough where we'd be like, all right, I'm going to be gone a couple months. I'll be back and come back to a job still. So I'd like work and then leave and then run out of money and then come back, work, and then do small domestic travel and then leave, run out of money, come back, like kind of like that type of thing. Just until I was never like fully like out of money, but just like right on the cusp, right till like I can just afford the flight home and then come back. And then that really showed me like what was possible. And again, like that, I feel like a lot of people like all like talk about this kind of stuff too. Like, oh, well, you can't like just do that. And I'm like, yeah, I realized like how lucky I was like with a job that I was able to just make money, leave, come back. And then within bike riding, have people that like, oh yeah, come stay with us. Come like not everyone has that. So I was lucky enough to make all that happen, you know?
So what kind of job did you have?
So my friend, he was a professional bike rider and would make videos online and would sell merchandise from the like video, like clothing and stuff like that. And it like grew into like from out of our apartment to a warehouse to a bigger warehouse. And like, as it grew to different stages, like it went from like me helping cut stickers in our apartment to like folding shirts in a warehouse and like dealing with big inventory and stuff like that. But it was still all flexible enough. Like, hey, as long as the job gets done, who cares? And now it's like, now he's a professional race car driver and it's even bigger. And I'm lucky enough to like work remote and be just as flexible pretty much. But he like, it's on a huge scale now. But we all like in the early stages of it, it was just like, hey, as long as the work gets done, like it was like piecework where like count how many shirts you folded, count how many stickers you cut, that type of thing. So we'd come in after the skate park at 10 p.m., cut stickers till 3 a.m., sleep till 11 when we had class. It was like and then just leave on the weekends, or then leave for a month and then come back. And it was like super flexible enough where we were able to do that.
That's amazing. And it's probably amazing to other people that have never done anything like that. Back in the day, in my early 20s through about my mid 20s, my thing was rock climbing. So I would work shitty jobs, right? So that I could take 3 or 4 days off and go do a quick climbing trip somewhere. Or I took 2.5 months and went with some buddies to Europe and backpacked around. You got to do those things when you're young, right?
Exactly. And like, that's what it's funny. I lived in Jacksonville for a little bit, and I knew it was going to be like just a temporary spot, because I'm like, all right, let me just live here for a little while before I move elsewhere. Like, Colorado was in the back of my head, but wasn't confirmed yet. I was like, all right, I just need any type of income. I don't care what it is. And I'm like, I'm going to be leaving to do trips anyway. Like, and I found this marketing job online for a window company. I was like, cool, marketing. Maybe I'll like be able to shoot photos or something. And I was also doing like whatever side gigs at the time too. Like, I had like recently, like my friend got me a gig shooting photos of Monster's coffee line of drinks. And so like that was like a side job. And like I had just come back from London doing a project with Timex that like paid me pretty well too. So like random stuff like that would like accumulate while doing these like other jobs that didn't pay as well. Like this job I got in Jacksonville. Well, no, actually the job I got in Jacksonville ended up paying more than I expected. But I was living there and I was like, let me apply to this marketing job. And I'm like, it's one of those interviews where I show up, and before I realize it, I'm like, oh, this isn't an interview. You're just telling me I have the job because you guys take whatever you can get. And I'm expecting, like I said, this marketing job where maybe I'll like work the social media or website or shoot photos or something. And mid-interview, they're like, yeah, so this is like a door-to-door position. Like you go knock on doors and you're selling hurricane windows. And I'm thinking this whole time, and I'm like, nope, I'm not going to be that guy. I'm like, I don't want to knock on people's doors, like unsolicited. And then he's like, all right, yeah, so it's like 10 an hour, and then you get commission, and the commission is this, and that. And I'm like, like if I'm getting paid to walk around and then some for commission, I'm like, why not? And I'll just search for something else. So I start, and the commission adds up, and I'm like making more than I expected. And I'm like, all right, well, I'm going to like go to Asia in a little bit for like a month or so. So I'll lose this job and then come back. But like, they would really take anyone they can get. So employees weren't lasting long there. And the employees they did have weren't always the best. People don't show up some morning and they're like, and they look online. Sure enough, find a mugshot and like, oh, that's where they are. That's why they didn't come in today. Like, and I wasn't doing that. So they like that. So I was like, all right, well, I'm going to go to Asia for like a month or so and I'll lose this job. And I tell them that. I'm like, hey, I'm kind of going to put in my 2 weeks. I'm going to go overseas for a month and then come back. And they're like, all right, well, let us know when you come back. Like, just go back to work. And I'm like, oh, like you guys like me that much. And I like kept doing it. And I like made way more than I expected. And I would just be able to like go door to door selling windows and then leave for a month and then come back and then keep selling windows. And I like, one of my friends from Missouri was coming down to Florida to visit. And I'm like, telling him about this job. He's like, I'm going to work there too. And he works there for 2 weeks and quits. But like that 2 weeks we talk about still to this day. It was years ago. It's just so like the encounters with people we're knocking on doors of, people that we're working with are just so ridiculous that like we still just like it's just like it's laughable and it's so funny. And I'm like, I'm so glad we did that. And that's what like I think when I did that, I realized too, I'm like, all right, I'm fully capable of doing whatever I need to for work just to get income. And then I can do like as long as I'm getting my fix for like what I'm passionate about outside of work. You know, I was knocking on doors, but then I was still able to ride my bike after work and I was working on this photo book on the side. So I was like, I was getting my fix of what made me happy. And I'm like, the other stuff was just funding it. And once I realized that was possible, I was like, all right, well, I can do like whatever for work. And that's when like I like moved out here and I was like, all right, well, I'll get any job. And I was lucky enough where my friend was like, well, just online customer service is busy enough, just do that full time out there. And I was like, oh, perfect. But I realized that during that job that I was capable of doing the whole random job that I don't care about thing to fund what I was passionate about. And that's what like I try to like tell people too in a situation where I'm like, listen, just get whatever, just make money and just make it work and do what you love outside of work. If you can make it happen for like at the same time, you know, if you can do what you love for a living, that's obviously the dream. But even to an extent, like I know some people that do it where they're just like, like I wish I had the division. So what I love was just what I loved. And it wasn't, you know, causing the stress. Like it's becoming more than like having to rely on that passion to the point that it's not always enjoyable. So it's nice having the division of it too. Like I said, like where the bike company I ride for and my friends do, it's never a pressured thing. We give photos, like riding photos, and we'll film videos, riding videos and stuff. And we do what we want. And it's like, nothing's a pressured thing, which is, it's worked out.
New Magazine is our media sponsor for the Tenet podcast. That's NUE. You can follow both the national and the Denver edition of New Magazine on Instagram. The national edition can be found at new_magazine and the Denver edition at new_Denver_magazine. Look to New for compelling stories from the world of art and fashion. Thanks for listening.
I'm Robert Barranco, and you're listening to the Tenet podcast.
In addition to doing writing photos and videos and stuff, you're also picking up other professional photography work?
Well, a lot of it has just been like the Timex thing, like in London was.
Yeah, talk about that a little bit.
So that wasn't a photography thing. Like lately, the photography stuff has been just like any photography stuff that I've done like for money is just like recent. Like my roommate, like I said, that's a photographer full time. Will be like, hey, I need an extra camera on set today. Come shoot and I'll pay you. And I'm like, yeah, sure. Or the random gig I got shooting stuff for like Monster. That's all just like random stuff that comes and goes. But like the Timex thing was pretty random. It was just, they reached out to me and like, hey, like we're doing this campaign where we pair people with watches and like kind of tell their story. We want you to be a part of it. And I was like, yeah, that's great. They were like, well, we fly to each person and do one day of photo, one day of video. But like, since your thing is kind of traveling, like we're in London doing the shoot with this DJ, why don't we fly you out here? And I'm like, perfect, do that, please. And then like I hadn't heard from them in a couple of months. I'm like, maybe that's not happening. And I reached out and they're like, hey, like we saw some of your like stuff online and we see you do like a lot of your traveling with friends and we want to fly them out too. And I was like, oh, like, perfect. That's great. And it happened to be timed well where we were like driving across the country anyway. So we're like, fly us out of LA. Like we'll be there on time. So we like rushed this drive across the country and they flew us out. And we're basically like, hey, everyone else, we're doing a full video shoot with them, but we like what you do on your own. So here's this Super 8 camera. Just go do your thing. They just rented us a Super 8 camera, gave us a hotel, and they're like, we'll need you in 3 days for a photo shoot. And I'm like, okay, sure. And they're like, just do whatever you want. And just like gave us money, funded the whole thing. We had per diem, and then like just filmed it all in Super 8. I had never shot on Super 8 before. And so I was like, I'm hoping this all comes out. And then like wanting it to like, not because I worked on a project before where I like people filmed bike riding that normally don't film bike riding. I was happy with the footage I filmed, but on the cutting room floor, they didn't use the correct footage. And I'm like, that's such a good project, but I wish that clip wasn't in there, that type of thing. And this was on film. So I'm like, I can't even review the footage and like delete the stuff I don't want. I'm just giving them 3 rolls of film and like, hope I look good in it. And I hope you pick the right clips. We were lucky enough where I was super happy with everything they picked, and all the footage came out great. But yeah, they were just like, pretend like you're on your own trip. Just go out, do whatever. Like we weren't even like using public transportation. We were just riding our bikes from the hotel to the skate park and everything, which was like how we would have done a trip anyway. But this time we had a spot to stay paid for and food paid for, which was like incredible, because like we would have done this kind of trip anyway. But like, because it was all shot on film, we were like, all right, like we filmed all these clips at the skate park yesterday, but the light looks better today. Maybe we should shoot it again, because I don't know how the stuff yesterday came out. So we like pedaled back and forth from the skate park, like miles every day, just to like to refilm stuff, but then still just do exactly what we wanted. And it was like, it was funny too, because we're staying in a very nice hotel, and people are like questioning us about bringing our bikes in. And then the photographer on set is like, no, don't give that to them. Like, they're fine. They're allowed to be here with their bikes. Do not talk to them. And I'm like, okay, like, sure enough, like we just got a pass to do whatever we want. And then the photographer on the set too, he was like the whole project worked out great, because everyone was open to like work with exactly like how I wanted things. Because again, like with action sports, like when you shoot people, you're shooting with people that like don't normally do that. What might look good to them is not good. Like,
right, because they don't know the sport, right?
Exactly. So there was a couple photos, like for instance, like when we went to the skate park, and the photographer was like, hey, like, can you do something on this hip? And I've been riding this park for 4 days, hadn't touched that hip once. And I'm like, well, that's what frames up well for you. Like, I'll have to figure it out. And I hit the thing 100 times. And like, there'd be a photo of me, like, it's called like a dead sailor. You go up and you just like lose control for a second and just freeze and just hope you don't fall. And like, it'd be a photo of that. And he's like, how's this? We can see the watch really good. And I'm like, no, please delete that. That does not need to be seen. That's not a good looking. I don't look good there. And I'm telling this photographer, like, who's incredible at what he does, like what to shoot and how to shoot it. And he was happy to listen. And like, whatever I like wanted got used. And then afterwards we went and found his work online, and he went on tour with the Stones, and he has portraits of like Muhammad Ali. And I'm like, this is the guy who was telling what to do at the skate park yesterday. And he was happy to just do whatever. Like, he listened to me because he knows that like I'll know what looks proper on a bike versus, yes, this might show the watch really good, but I look gross in the air. I'm like, I don't look good on what I'm doing. So I'm like, don't use that one, use this one. But yeah, that ended up like that was, and then they were happy with like the whole project too. And I guess this is like another piece I haven't talked about yet, but my friends and I have a clothing company that it's kind of like the website, like I sell the book on as well. And they were like excited to hear the story behind that whole thing. And they were like, we have a store in Tokyo that we want to put your clothes in. And I was like, oh, absolutely, sure. And they like ordered multiple of everything we've ever made and put them in their store in Tokyo. And like it all just kept snowballing into more than we expected. And yeah, it ended up being a cool project. But yeah,
that's amazing, man.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, people do a whole career and don't get those kind of opportunities.
Yeah, I got super lucky. It was just this random Italian man reached out to me and he said, I do marketing for Timex. What's your email? And I'm like, okay, sure. And it became something like that.
Now, was this based on things that he saw like on your Instagram, or how did that work?
I believe so. He didn't really explain, but after like I was out of contact with them for a few months and then spoke to them again, and then they were like, hey, like we saw what you guys do. We want to bring your friends too. They had seen so like when I was saying like we'll film on trips, like bike riding. So like for the bike company, like last year, for instance, like all of us were in Colorado and we filmed a riding video with like music and everything. That's like your standard like BMX video. But a lot of times on trips, we'll just turn the camera on just for like the stuff behind the scenes too, because we know like we're going to be sleeping in whatever ridiculous places and whatnot. So let's just film the whole thing. And we'd put these like roughly chopped up videos of half riding, like half just behind the scenes of the trip. And we'd put those like online, and they would see those, I guess. And that's when they were like, hey, like, we want you to just take control. That's when they were like, bring your friends, here's the camera, do your thing, film like you do on your normal trip, but with this camera. So I think that's what they had seen that kind of evolved the project into what it became.
That's fantastic.
So what's your
Really
clothing company called?
It's FTE for the experience. It was something it started off, had nothing to do with traveling or clothing or anything. We after the skate park, we'd go out to eat. And if I had food at the house, or any of us had food at the house, we'd be like, all right, I'll go, but I'll go for the experience. I don't want to eat. I want to spend money. And we kept saying that and saying, oh, I'll go FTE. And then just kept saying it. And then like friends of friends that like we had never met before were saying it. And we're like, well, this is really like catching on. And then one day we're joking about like, let's like get tattoos that say FTE. And one of my friends like, oh, I'll order a tattoo gun. Like he fully thought he was joking. And he ordered it. And like, we like tattooed FTE on ourselves in the kitchen. Like it wasn't even a company yet. We're just like, we taught ourselves how to tattoo like on each other and did all that. Then we're like, oh, we could like we're doing enough of these trips. We might as well turn the camera on. We started like making clothes too. I mean, like none of us are designers by any means, but a lot of the stuff was just inspired by little inside jokes in our group or music we listened to, whatever, like inspired clothing. And like there's one, we put the coordinates to our house on shirt, and they all sold out. No one ever questioned it. No one ever asked what the coordinates are. Like we have the coordinates to where we lived. Like we lived there at the time. Now we don't. But like we put the coordinates to the house on there, and we have all these like inside jokes that no one knows the context of on the taglines. And it was just cool because like we just do whatever we want. And then it like branched out too to like that's when the book became a thing. We were like, all right, like I don't want to go from just a bunch of t-shirts to a 400-page book. So we'll do like, we started selling prints online, like photo prints and stuff. So it wasn't just t-shirts to book. Yeah, it kind of just became like whatever we want it to be. And it's just like, it's never like something we're taking profit from. It's just like a self-funding project where we do exactly what we want. Never made it more than we wanted it to be. So
that's kind of cool.
Yeah, it's just kind of something fun. And we, if it becomes something more than we expected, cool. But right now it's again, like we all have our jobs where we get the income from, and then this is just fun. We'll do exactly what we want with it. And we could probably be more consistent and marketable with social media, and do better. But we keep it as what it is and give ourselves hard times sometimes about, all right, we really need to like push it, we're slacking, and then like need to post more or something like that. But yeah, it's fun. It is what it is. So
that's cool.
So how many people are involved with FTE then?
It started off with like 5 or 6 of us. And then now there's 2 of us directly in charge of like the finances, and we'll make all the decisions. But the other ones, like the rest of our friend group will like reach out like, hey, what do you guys think of this design? Give input. And like so 2 of us are like behind the ordering and production and all that. But there's like all of us are involved in the whole kind of process. There's like maybe 5 or 6 of just loosely involved, giving input. We're all on trips together, like that type of thing. So
how did the pandemic affect your travel?
The pandemic was kind of interesting with travel because like I said, I don't think the book would have ever really happened or finished because I would have just kept going places. Like we had all these trips planned that I was like, yeah, I was like trying to finalize the book, but knowing myself, those trips would have happened and I would have just like kept going and kept shooting and I wouldn't have ended it. As a result, just did way more like travel within the States than I expected to. Like places I had been before, but I was like, all right, well, now I'd appreciate this skate park more. Or I went here and completely missed all this stuff. Went back and like, just like Montana, for instance, like I passed through Montana several times. I'm like, well, now that I know exactly what like the exact type of bull I want to ride, there's 8 of these bulls in Montana. Let's go to a full Montana trip, and had a whole new appreciation for like the States. Whereas before I was like, all right, we'll do like small road trips here and there, but I wanted to just do the bigger international stuff. But this was kind of like, I got a whole new appreciation of the States, and a lot more Colorado photos ended up in the book than anticipated because of that, because I was just like shooting here a lot. And a lot of I'll travel for work too, because like I said, my boss is a race car driver. He'll have us come out to events to work. So a lot of them I'll like, the travel slowed down for like a year because those events couldn't happen. But the second year it was back in full force. So I was like, well, if you're flying me to this place, there's all these skate parks I want to ride. So send me home like 5 days later. So I would just like stay out on my own and stuff like that, or stay with friends. And so I ended up doing way more travel within the States than I planned on, but it was kind of touching most of the corners that I had been wanting to go back to. So
that was kind of fortuitous, right? Because you got to revisit places that you saw that you thought were interesting, but didn't really have the time to fully explore, and explore places that you didn't get a chance to explore before.
Yeah, exactly. Like there was a lot of stuff where like my friend from Missouri was moving out to Colorado at the same time as I was. And we were like, oh yeah, like we can go hit up like now, because before road trip distance was the Carolinas, Georgia, Louisiana, if we were pushing it. But I'm like, now road trip distance is like Wyoming, Montana, Utah, Arizona, like New Mexico, like all that stuff. I'm like, we could go to all these parks now that we like had been to before or had been wanting to go to and like didn't go to at the time, because now we're much more diligent with our skate park research. But we were like, as soon as we moved to Colorado, like we had this trip we wanted to do that like looped around Spain, France, and Portugal, that we had like I had been to that area before, but didn't know those parks at the time. So like want to go back and do the specific loop to hit all these parks. And then the South America trip. And that was all going to happen as soon as we moved here. But as soon as we moved here, COVID happened. So it all went a much different direction and forced me to stay somewhat like, because I was able to work on it work on the book while being in the States, rather than constantly hopping around without a place to stay. Like it was easier to have a home base here,
Yeah.
Finish the book. So
absolutely.
So how do you find out? I mean, obviously Google will probably tell you where every bowl is in America or in the world. How would you research and find these really cool skate parks? Talking to friends, or?
Yeah, a lot of it is like, well, some of it, like if I really have no idea, I'll just, skate parks in so-and-so, and like start looking at places. A lot of it too is like, oh, I saw this park in a video and I know that trip from that video was in this country. I know they were in this city. And then like really doing research, and nowadays on social media too, when people just tag locations, and I'm like, okay, so it's this city, and just like digging and finding, like there's even an app that has a bunch of like, it says it has all the skate parks, but I've found so many parks that like aren't on there. But a lot of it's just talking to friends too, especially like in the specific thing I like to ride of concrete bowls. There's like a small community of people that like are really searching out every single one worth hitting. And like, I have friends that just have like, I'll think I have a lot of like, cause I'll pin them on my maps of ones I haven't been to or like want to go to, or have gone to and like don't want to forget. And I'll like pin them, and like, I'll think I have a good amount, and then talk to a friend and his map is just way more full of pin on his phone. And I'm like, okay, like, or I'll be going to this area and I'm like, hey, like I saw you rode that park. Is that anywhere near me? Oh yeah, here's the pin. Or it's kind of like that with like full pipes too. Like these drainage ditches that like, or like they'll have overflow for a lake. go into, like you see these funnels come out of lakes when the water's low, and then it funnels in when the water's high. At the bottom of those are full pipes. And that's a whole different community to find those. And because you're obviously not supposed to be there. So to find those, get there, pull it off and leave, like without getting arrested, with it being dry, without getting fined or anything, like that's a whole thing in itself of like, hey, like, where's this pipe? I know this. Or like, but it's like one of the ones we went to, I wrote about it in the book. Something made me think of this one. We were passing through Northern California, and I'm like, I know there's a full pipe. I want to say it's in San Francisco area, but I'm like, it could be like in Montana. I ended up being confusing. I was confusing these two different ones. And like, since I've written both of them, but I was like passing through there, and I was like, all right, I feel like there's a pipe around here somewhere. Like, I don't know. Like, I started calling friends. One of them called me, and he's like, hey, like, I see you're in Northern California. Like, what are you guys doing? And I'm like, oh, like, we're just passing through, going to Southern California. I was like, we're thinking about this full pipe. Like, do you know what I'm talking about? And I'm like, you have to take a raft out to it. I've seen a video years ago of these French guys, like taking an inflatable like boat and paddling out to it. And I'm like, before I even mentioned that to my friend, he's like, well, my boss has been to a couple full pipes, like over the years. He went to one years ago, you had to like paddle out to. And I'm like, yes, that one. I'm like, can you get me any info you have on that one? And he like, within 5 minutes, sends me like the pin on the map with the location, everything. And I'm like, all right, cool. Like, we're going to Southern California, but then we're driving back. I'm like, on the way back, let's like try to hit this pipe. But I'm like, how do I know if this thing isn't like flowing with water right now? Like 2 days later, my friend posts something riding it. And I'm like, I haven't seen footage or photos from this place in maybe 5 years. And you just happen to ride it. And I like messaged him. He's like, yes, here's the deal. Like, park here, walk this way, bring an inflatable raft, bring cat litter, because you have to build like a dam to stop the water, because the water is like constantly like trickling down if you want to like ride it. So we like have to go there. Like, we ended up like renting. I say renting because I like buy it and return it to Walmart. But we ended up buying this inflatable unicorn, which it just so happened to be that that's what my friend like bought too when he went to the pipe. And there was one with a damaged box, and it was like half price. I'm like, perfect. Like, let's get this one, which in hindsight, I'm like, we're splitting the cost between 5 people. Like, we can afford a fully boxed brand new inflatable unicorn. And we drive however long, like we slept in this Walmart parking lot, and then drive an hour or so to this lot, hike on a path that would have been tough to hike even just on foot. And we have like shovels, cat litter, buckets, like this unicorn and the box still, everything. And we like get to the point where we'd have to like go in the water. We take everything out, like, let's see, like, all right, yep, there's no way around it. Like, we have to go through the water. Like, let's inflate this thing. And there's no plugs in it. Whoever returned the unicorn didn't put the plugs back in. And I'm like, oh, this was a 2-hour process, if not more. So like half the group stayed there, and like we went back to Walmart, bought a full price unicorn, and like the whole, and it ended up happening. And you ride it for 30 minutes, and then the dam breaks of cat litter, and then you're done. And then you paddle back, and you're like, that was it. That was worth it. Like, that was a 3-day mission, like 2-day mission to ride this 20, 30 minutes, like taking turns, and just it worth it. Like 100%, like all the work that went into it of like finding locations, like sending pins and stuff like that. It's a full like culture alone of just hunting this stuff down, and that ended up being a more popular one. There's some in Colorado that I've had to like hunt down that I'm like, you really shouldn't ride because you'll definitely get arrested. But yeah, it's a whole community of like, there's stuff I've found by like just looking in the background of a photo, and then like, okay, like, well, that's back there, so that, and it's in this place, it has to be here, and then like finding a bowl from that. Yeah, it's a whole watching skate videos from 10 years ago. Oh, where's that full pipe? Where's that skate park? And then just looking it up, and sure enough, that park's still there, and it's like super crusty and beat up now, but it's still there. And
what was it like to ride the full pike in Northern California?
It was it's like, well, full pipes are always like tough to ride because like there's no flat bottom, so it's just constant transition. So like it's quick. Luckily, this was a bigger one that you get like you have more time in between like both walls when you're like carving up and down. But again, it's like you're taking turns because everyone works for it. So like all 5 guys are taking turns riding. You get 20 minutes and you're like, everyone wants a clip or a photo or something. And you're like, go as fast as you can. And it's just like a tough thing to ride. Like one that big is easier to ride than a smaller one. Like a smaller one is so tight that like to even get going in it, it like takes a second. But it's always something that is just like if there was something like that at a skate park, you wouldn't touch it. But the mission and going there and riding something you're not supposed to ride is just like, that's worth it. That's the whole idea behind it. That's the same thing too with like, we do these, like some of these trips where you don't even know anything about the skate park. You just see the skate park exists and you're like, let's go there. And whatever it takes to ride it, like it'll be worth it. And like the trip revolving around it is like the things that go wrong or things that go right are ridiculous. Like the sleeping situations you end up in. But I'm like, oh, we rode that park. Who cares? Like sometimes the park is just like an excuse. Like, let's just go there. Like we found one park in Copenhagen and like booked one-way tickets. And like that was it. That's all we needed just to justify and everything
trip.
Else. Yeah. And the half the stuff in the book ends up from that one trip because it was just that one park being enough of a justification to go there.
So the one in California, was that the craziest logistically that you've ever done?
I think as far as like ones like spots to ride, like to get to, that's definitely up there. Like I've ridden other full pipes that are just like that are much easier to get to. Like there's one in Wyoming in the middle of nowhere, but like it's right behind some dude's property and he doesn't even care. He'll like wave to you as you drive to the full pipe. And like so stuff like that's easy. But that was probably, I'd say, like the most work to ride something for 20 minutes. I mean, and there's other ones, there's other bowls where like it's full of water or something and it takes 2 days of work and you don't even ride the thing. But that's less of a mission to get there because you just drive up to the skate park. But yeah.
You're a pretty young guy. You actually have a birthday coming up in a few days, as I understand. You're going to be 27. Is that right?
Yeah, I keep forgetting that actually. Yes.
God's here to remind you.
Yeah.
So I'll just wish you a happy birthday.
Thank you.
Pre-birthday. Do you ever see yourself not doing this? Not having this kind of lifestyle?
Sometimes I think so, but then I'm like, I think I might be more rational with decisions, but I don't see it ever like slowing down or stopping because I'm like, I'll still be, even like throughout all of COVID, I'm just like, all right, well, when this is over, we're going to go here. And then like just finding all these parks and stuff worth riding around the world. And it's a weird thing of like, I don't even know how to, it's like when I'm like in one place for too long. I mean, I think it's different in Colorado too, when there's so much to do here, but I'm like, all right, I have to go do something. There's times where like, all right, like I'm exhausted from the last trip, but like this other one's coming up and I'd love to just like, it'd be nice to be like home for a minute. Not that I'm like constantly on the go right now, but with 2 trips happen to be back to back. And I'm like, oh, it'd be nice to just like hang out and or just be home for a minute. But I'm like, I have to, it's like an obsessive, like, if I stay here and do nothing, and I'm like, why? There's no reason I can't be on a trip, like checking stuff off the list, as cliche as it is. Just like, I'm like, there's stuff out there that I haven't ridden yet or places that I haven't gone to. I'm like, why? I have no reason not to just keep going. And it's just like, I'll constantly be finding things that are worth riding or worth going to. There might be more, like I said, justification or like rational decisions behind it. Like more research might go into things than oh, there's one park, let's just bring a tent. But at the same time, like that's the stuff that is as rough as it is at the time. It's rewarding, you know, like if the trips I've gone to, like the London one, for instance, like as perfect as that was, that's not the trip that sticks in my head. Like the one that sticks in my head is when I got rained on sleeping in a bowl, you know, and you're not supposed to be there, or you camped in like someone's yard, you ran out of gas, like, that kind of stuff. The stuff that goes wrong. I mean, that's the stuff
that's epic, right?
Exactly. The stuff that's worth writing about. So I think it'll always be there in a sense, and there are times where I'm like, I wonder if I'll just like be content with like all right, I've hit enough new skate parks. I'm content here, but I'm like, I don't foresee it happening in the future. But I'm like that, like with everything. I'll just like even just my friend and I will like obsess over music in that way of like, oh, like, all right. So that's how we ended up listening to just the super old stuff of like, all right, well, so this band did this, but then this is a cover of this, which is originally a blues song, which predates recorded music. And then we're listening to something from the 30s that isn't even the original version. And I'm like, what do we do? It just becomes this obsessive thing of just tracing something or just going as far as you can. I'm like that with books too. Like whatever I'm reading, I'm like, all right, well, this guy inspired this guy. So let me read him. And then let me read him. And then he mentions this book. Let me read this. And then it's like that with skate parks too. And just of like, oh, well, like there's one park in California road where there's a full pipe in the bowl, but it's modeled after the real full pipe that people used to ride up the street. Everything just becomes obsessive of tracing everything down.
It sounds like this is part of your personality, this obsessiveness that, whatever it may be, whether it's music, finding these pipes to ride, these bowls, traveling, the whole gamut, right?
Yeah. I mean, I had severe OCD when I was younger, so that I still see traces of it now with stuff like this. And but yeah, and it's just, I think too, it's just like I feel like I get the most out of, like I said, doing trips like that where it's not all glamorous and you're kind of just up in the mix with the locals and everything. And there's some stuff where, like I said before, people think like, oh, how'd you do this, and that? And I'm like, well, yeah, I slept on the streets that night. You didn't know that. Yeah, I was here, then I was here, but in between, I was using a water bottle as a pillow. So like, but again, like I'm lucky enough to be able to put myself in those situations. Like I choose to do that. Like that's, I mentioned that in the book. I'm like, I'm never complaining by talking about those scenarios. Like I could always splurge and have a bed for the night or something like that. But it's always kind of like, you get more out of stuff like that. You get more out of that than the people up at the resort doing a guided tour,
You learn a lot, right? You learn a lot about yourself, and you learn a lot about the environment and the people that you're involved with.
Exactly. And it makes me appreciate the little things. Like when I'm like, oh, at least I have a car to sleep in tonight, like, right. Or at least there's a tent, there was one night in Sweden, my friend and I, we ended up being in one city later than we expected and like couldn't take a bus out, and there was nowhere to even set up a tent. So we slept on playground hammocks next to a skate park, just sleeping bags on the hammocks on a playground. And this was like in the middle of summer in Sweden. So there's like 2 hours of darkness. And I'm like, I wish we just had like a tent right now. And I'm like, like you think the tent is the bare minimum, and then you don't have the tent. And then you're like, man, I wish I had like at least some nylon walls between me and the sky right now.
That's awesome.
It really does give you an appreciation for things, I think,
Oh yeah, definitely. And I feel like too, travel should, when like done, not that there's a way of doing it properly or not, but I feel like if it's done properly, it should like raise your standards and like lower your standards. Like it should raise the standards of like, because the people you're meeting, the experiences you're having, like a more appreciation for things, but lower your standards of like, I've been through this, I can do this. I've slept in these conditions. I've roughed it on this whole trip. I can withstand something much easier, like even as little of things as like, my room is so poorly insulated in this house, I'll be freezing at night, but I'm like, I'm inside right now. The heat's on. Like,
that's great, man. I read that someplace that you try to, and I don't know if you still adhere to this kind of rule, but you try to keep it to surviving on like $10 a day. Is that still kind of a rule?
That was on a much lower budget when I had a much lower income. But I mean, not that that made it sound like I'm really like raking in money now, but and I'm not. But that's when I was like being extra cheap. That was like somewhat quoted out of context, but it really was around $10 a day at some points because my friend and I were in Scandinavia where it's not cheap at all. And I'm like, all right, if we're going to be doing this for like a month or so, we're not eating breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Like that's not in the budget. We will get snacks from the grocery store, snack all day until it's time for a big meal. And then maybe have another snack before we go to sleep. And sometimes that ended up being around $10 a day. Because, the cheapest you can get in Scandinavia is like a kebab from a Mediterranean spot, and then go back and sleep in the tent. So it ended up being around $10 a day, but that was on usually on trips and stuff. Because I'm like, I don't need a full breakfast right now. Like I have a peanut butter sandwich, that's plenty. And then because the less at that time, I'm like, the less I'm spending, the longer I could stay out here. The longer the funds for the flight home are going to last, until eventually I'm like, all right, if I don't go home now, I'm stuck.
I get this feeling, because of things are so expensive now, that those kind of days are over where kids can travel relatively inexpensively, because gas is I paid almost $4 a gallon. A couple of weeks ago it was over $4 a gallon, right? Yeah. So you can't just live in your car because you got gas expenses.
Even that is like too expensive now. And like, it's funny because like I've been to places too where like along the coast of Australia where a lot of people are sleeping in their cars and setting up a tent wherever possible to keep it cheap. Like they know you're there to surf or to ride their skate park. So there's signs everywhere. No sleeping in your car. No camping on public property, because people like us have ruined it. And we're there to do exactly that. Like, I feel like it's catching on now of like the whole like traveling like that, where it's not nearly as like before you saw a white van parked in a skate park or something, and you're like, all right, well, maybe some maintenance guy there. I think just especially in Colorado, just about everyone you could tell who's living in their van. It's not some beat up old van now with curtains in the window. It's a $50,000 van with solar panels on it. And it's not like a subtle thing anymore. So I think it is like catching on too. Well, I mean, it has been catching on, but it's not easy to just pull off anymore. Everything from gas price. It's funny too. First time I really like road tripped across Europe was I was realizing the differences between traveling in America and traveling in the States, where it's like at the time gas prices were cheap here and as inexpensive as it gets. You put a group of friends in the car, drive across the country, you really don't have to spend much at all. Whereas in Europe, you could take a bus or a train 3 countries across and spend €4, or take a flight for €20. But if you're driving, we'd be spending, I don't even know how much on gas. And then we wouldn't hit a toll for like days. And then we'd hit a toll that's €30. I'm like, what is this? I've never gone through a toll booth that's this expensive. And then there's other extremes, like I said, where in Southeast Asia, where you're spending pennies. Like my friend and I got a bus from the airport to our Airbnb that was like 45 minutes in Vietnam, and it was pennies. And I exchanged $40 and had like $1 million current local currency. And I'm like, but it took me a while to get used to, like, all right, I'm paying $400 for this bus. I'm like, all right, no, that's That's like 30 cents. Like it's fine. I could splurge out here. You can eat breakfast, lunch, and dinner and be fine.
Yeah.
So where are some of your favorite places that you've been to in all these countries that you've traveled to?
Like Norway is one of my favorite places that I've ever been to, just as far as like beauty. Like there was always like, I feel like everywhere I went, I would always compare like, oh, like this is beautiful, but it doesn't compare to this, but Norway like blew everywhere else out of the water. But is that a place I would just go back to as often as possible? No, because it's extremely expensive, and especially doing that on the budget I was at the time and still am sometimes. I'm like, this isn't like we went there, slept in the woods, hiked, slept in the woods, and then drove back and still spent way more than we had anywhere else. But as far as I feel like of well-rounded places, like Spain is one of my favorites. It's like Barcelona is the Southern California of Europe. I feel like a lot of my bias is where skate parks are. So like the east coast of Australia is just littered with deep concrete bowls that are just perfect, like along the Australian coast. And it's one of my favorite places in the entire world is the Pacific Northwest too. It's just, there's these 2 skate park companies up there that build some of the gnarliest skate parks in the entire world, like to the point that cities don't let them build them like that anymore. But they're still there and they exist. And you drive, it's these coastal towns you've never heard of if you didn't know of the skate park there. And they have the gnarliest park you've ever been to, with like a full pipe in a neighborhood, like 3 full pipes next to someone's front yard that doesn't even skateboard or ride bikes or anything. And they don't know what that is in front of their house. And then you drive 2 miles west and you're on a cliffside on the Oregon coast, and it's like perfect. I feel like of everywhere I've been, that's one of my favorite places in the entire world. I struggle always like pinning a spot down. Oh, this is my favorite, or that's my favorite, because there's bits and pieces of everywhere. But like I love how much I'm able to splurge in Southeast Asia and not actually spend a lot of money. And then also I like the idea of just being so foreign and so like complete language barrier. I'm in a completely different world right now. They have a completely different view of life. Like their society operates completely different, and you can't even compare. And you feel so foreign, and it's like, I feel like it's exhausting sometimes. And it's just like mainly in just crowded cities. Like my friend and I were staying in Vietnam for a few days, and we were in like the heart of the capital, and like leaving to go get dinner was exhausting. It's okay. Like we're crossing the street, like look to the left, there's like 10 scooters coming. You look to the right, there's a bus and a car and 15 scooters. And you're like, all right, like this is the least crowded it'll be. Let's just cross and just you navigate. And it's just like you get back to your hostel with 15 other beds in it, and you're like, oh, I'm at peace right now. Like in the States, the people wouldn't settle for, oh, what do you mean I'm in a room that barely has AC with 15 other people in it? But like there, that's what you're appreciating at that time. And let alone that you ate at the nicest space you could find and spent $7. Like,
yeah, people don't realize, and I didn't even think about it until you start talking about that experience, but just how exhausting it can be, especially when you're on a long trip, negotiating just the simplest things, especially when you don't have the language skills and know where you're going. It's exhausting.
Yeah, I never really get homesick. I think the closest I'll get to homesick is now that I live in Colorado, where I can go out my front door and like be without service in the mountains for 10 minutes. And I like really enjoy that. And like, there's so much to do here. Like I'll be excited to come back home, but I've never felt like a homesick. But when I am somewhere that foreign to me, it is exhausting. Like we met someone there as mid conversation, as my friend and I were like, oh, good thing we're only staying in the city for like 3 days. We met some girl just showing up to the hostel, and she's there for 13 months. And I'm like, oh, like it'd be like 8 months later. And my friend and I are like, and she's still there. She's still in the hostel right now. she's still having to dodge buses and scooters right now. And again, that's other people's like norm. That's their daily life. That's their world. And we went to a village in Cambodia where no one has like a lot of the youngest kids don't have clothes or shoes and everything. And they're happier than the Americans that were complaining about their seating on the bus on the way over there. Again, that's not to glorify or romanticize their situation. I think it's just that's their world and that's all they know. And they're happy with what they have. And no one should have to live like that. They do. And they're happy. And they're happy to have their photo taken by a tourist or whatever.
Yeah, it gives you perspective, right?
Oh,
Yeah.
so much perspective. When it's just like, and then you think you're roughing it on a trip. You see something like that, and you're like, at least I'm doing this by choice.
Yeah,
Sleeping in this tent because I like am being cheap. Like I could go stay in a hotel if I wanted to right now. I have a home to go back to. I don't even have to be out here. Stuff like that.
Yeah, you have a choice, right? You could say, I'm done. I'm going back home.
Yeah, exactly. I could tap out whenever I want to. But that's what I think is interesting too, is like when choosing to be in those scenarios, like it like forces new perspective on myself too. And that's a lot I realized while writing the book too, is realizing how much my perspective on things had changed while writing about it, because it happened and I like processed it, whatever. Then I write about it like when I get home or years later, and I'm like, oh, I really didn't realize how much that changed my perspective until I'm like putting it all on paper now. Or like I didn't really like, I view it differently now than I did as it was happening, because in the moment what seemed normal or just like, oh, we're roughing it, is a whole different viewpoint at the time than it is after the fact.
You have a degree in business from the University of Central Florida. You've been doing this for a while. You've got this down, pretty much to a T. What did your parents think of this, or at least early on? Were they kind of like, Robert's lost his mind, he's crazy for doing all this stuff? Or were they pretty supportive?
At first it was like, like you just went somewhere. Why do you have to go somewhere again? And it was like, oh, why don't you guys stay in a hotel, or who are you staying with? Whatever. I mean, the who are you staying with question is still there. It'll always be there. But they were more concerned at the time, whereas now, and it gradually moved from that to like, all right, as long as you can afford it. And I'm like, well, yeah, I just about can't. And I'm like right on the cusp. There was once where my friend convinced me to do a trip to Asia where he had to like spot me money and I paid him back right after. And that's the only time that has happened. But it was like, it went from like nervous that it was happening to like, oh, why are you going somewhere again? You just got back and you're in college. What are you doing? You're never there. And to like, all right, as long as you can afford it, I guess. Cause I mean, I was spending my own money the whole time anyway. But once I kept proving them that, hey, it's working and I'm gaining all these experiences and I'm somehow passing these classes, they were always like happy to hear the stories afterwards. And I'm like, see, you guys didn't want me to go on that trip. And now everyone's all smiles as I'm telling the stories from the trips. And now it's a full like support. They're happy to like hear about wherever I'm going and all that stuff, because I've proven to myself and to them that like, I can balance it. And even when, I mean, they'll still be concerned in the sense of like my mom has, when she found out she could have my location on my phone, she utilized that feature immediately. So like she'll see on trips that like, hey, I saw you stayed in the field last night. Like, what was that about? Like, oh, we were sleeping at a skate park, or like why are you just in the woods or something? Like, so it gives her more opportunities to like pry. But yeah, it's definitely more supportive now, and it's especially like once like they saw the book and everything, they were like,
I'm sure they were proud.
Yeah, definitely. They were like, oh, how's like the book coming along? How's the book coming along? I kept asking, and then like they saw the final product and read stuff that they didn't know I had done, because I'll give them the shortened version sometimes, and then they'll read more in depth and feel like I'm glad I didn't know that at the time.
Right. You gave them the parental version of the
exactly. And then they find out like where we really slept that time and all that stuff. But it's funny too, because I never used, like, although technically my friend and I have a company and I work for another friend that has a very successful company, like I never used the business degree in the slightest. It was more of just all right, let me get this piece of paper, and this seems like an easy way to get it. And now in hindsight too, there is like, I'm like, I never had any type of like photography classes. I'm like, that might, like, I had all these electives I could have taken. I'm like, it would have been nice to like have something on photography just out of curiosity. I'm happy with what I've self-taught myself or by shooting with friends, but like that would have been interesting in college. But at the time it was just, I don't care. I just need this piece of paper and I'm going to be doing these trips. And the same thing with writing too. I'm like, might have been more interested in that at the time. But now I just do it all for myself now because I don't have to do it. I'm doing it for myself, and now I enjoy it. So
Yeah.
I respect that because it's honest, man. And I think sometimes not having that skill set and just kind of, flying by the seat of your pants and figuring out like you've done a lot of things. I mean, that counts for a lot. I really admire that in a person when someone like yourself goes out and does stuff like this.
I appreciate it. Yeah. I don't think even when I tried to appreciate stuff in school, I was like, oh, well, I have to do this. I have to learn this. I don't want to. And now I have this sudden interest in all this stuff because I want to do it. And I'm putting myself in scenarios where now I'm interested in this. And now, I found myself Googling stuff that I was taught in school, but just didn't pay attention. But it's all because I like wanted to do it now. And it was like on my own time. And I let myself form an interest rather than it be shoved down my throat. And then that, which gave me another appreciation too, for like people that like say like, oh, I'll go back to school. Cause I always thought I'm like, oh, I can never do that. And I'm like, and I don't want to go back to school, but if I could see myself, if I was in school now, I would see myself being more interested than I was at the time. I would still like leave as often as possible and everything. But at the time I was like, I would still do that, but I was like telling professors that this trip was for work. And I'm like, oh, I have to go to Thailand for work. What do you do for work? Oh, it's a marketing company. And they start asking me about it. I do have one professor that like kind of like gets like what I was doing and like what I did. And like, he's super interested. He bought a book. He like promoted it. He like reaches out sometimes and he's super interested in everything I did and like supported the fact that like, he's like, they had something where like, if you get a job or start a company, you don't have to take the final exam. And I was like, oh, there's no way like this side project of my friend and I will count towards getting exempt from the final exam. But he was like so stoked on it and was like, yeah, absolutely. Like this gets you out of the final exam. And it's like kept up with me and the company and everything. And like has been super interested in all of it.
That's fantastic.
Cool. It is.
Yeah.
That is really cool. Yeah. And I went back at 29. I went to college at 29, then went back in my 40s for my master's. But
awesome.
Yeah. So what I think is cool about you though, is because a lot of people will say, I'll do this when I have a degree or when I have my master's or when I get this kind of training, then I'll do this or, so they put off, the dream off this lie of I'll do it when,
Mm-hmm.
and you're just like, screw it. I'm going to live life and I'm going to grab it by the horns or by the balls, one or the other, and just work. Right.
Yeah, I think too, because there was times throughout the book where I thought, I'm like, what am I doing? And I'm like, who's going to want to see this stuff? I'm like, why am I including photos from my first roll of film in this? I'm like, this is like, I shouldn't be making a book. And I'm like, no, just keep doing it, like whatever. And there's a quote from Charles Bukowski that I've heard a few times, and I'll paraphrase it, but where he's basically saying like, he's like, everyone, basically exactly what you said, of everyone always says like, oh, I'll do this when this happens. Oh, when I get this, when I'm in this relationship, when I have this job. And like, if you really wanted to do it, you would not be able to function until you did it. It is basically what he was saying. Like it'd be burning inside you to the point that you can't ignore it, and you'd have to do it. And that's kind of like what, like going back to like these trips sometimes of like, oh, like even if I'm exhausted or like don't feel like it, and I'm like, no, I have to do it. I'm like, I have to, I will not like be able to rest until I like go to that. Especially I'm like during COVID when everything was within distance, I'm like there's no reason to put off this Montana trip to hit these parks I've wanted to hit for years. I can go right now. And like with the book, I'm like, I can do this right now. Like there's no reason, like I held myself accountable by putting volume 1. I'm like, I can make a second one. I'm like, just do this one now. I'm like, just make it till it's done. And then I can like rest. And like back to the chasing down certain skate parks and stuff. Another one of my friends, he's compared it to he rides the same type of stuff and like chases it all down. He's compared it to big wave surfing, which I don't know a thing about surfing, but it's the perfect comparison I could think of this thing exists in one part of the world, and you have to like you go to it. You don't know the conditions it's going to be when you get there. The bowl could be beat up, it could be full of water, but you know this exists in this one remote part of town, and you like go there, experience it for whatever it is. Tough to ride, perfect to ride, best park you've ever ridden, hardest park you've ever ridden, but you just experience it. And that's it. And it happened. And whatever it was, and it's like, it is similar to big wave surfing, how it's like, it's same type of culture. It's like, I always think it's interesting how like skateboarders end up in one corner of the world when traveling, surfers end up in another part of the world, snowboarders, bike riders, everyone ends up, but they're all just chasing like their thing. Like musicians end up in Nashville, whatever. Riders end up in Paris, everything. Everyone gets pushed in their own directions. It's fascinating. And it's like cool to like see where I've been pushed to go because of it, even if it's some like nowhere town in Oregon or Montana that no one would ever go to, but I'm there because there's a beat up old skate park falling apart.
And I think that's the purpose of life, man. Everybody's out looking, what's the meaning of life? It's like, drive yourself, do the thing that you can't not do. And that's where you're going to find your bliss, right?
Yeah. Just pushing yourself until you think you're going to be satisfied. And then you do that, and it just pushes you to want to do the next thing. And you'll never, again, going back to, will I ever stop doing this? I don't think I will, because I do that and I'm like, okay, now I did this. Now I want to do this. Now I went here, which made me want to go here. You meet someone that tells you about a different skate park or this country or this hike or this whatever. And it never stops, because and then you get all the joy and experience from doing the initial thing, that it's just going to want to push you to the next one too. And it's just a cycle that won't ever stop, I think.
Yeah.
Which is good, because I think sometimes I'll be sitting here thinking like, oh, like I'm never satisfied with like, oh, I can't just like rest after like this trip or after doing this. I'm like, just like before I even had the book for sale, I was like jotting notes down for the second book. And I'm like, I'll never just take a second to stop. And I'm like, well, that's the kind of stuff that has led me to whatever I've done now. That exact type of behavior of not being satisfied or wanting to like, oh, I have to go here, or I have to do this. If I was just content, none of this would have happened. There wouldn't be anything to put in the pages of that book. So,
and you got to do it now, just like you said, like you got to do it while your body can do it. And anything could happen, right? Don't wait till you're old to do it.
Yeah, exactly.
When you're young, you can take chances. You can sleep on the ground. You can sleep in a tent and, in a bowl. You can sleep in the woods. You can live on $10 a day. Or like a video I saw of you, and I can relate to this. You can hear almost desperation in your voice, and you're sitting out on the street. It sounded like you're out of money, and you're literally taking a debit or credit card and scraping cheese spread on a little piece of bread because you're that hungry, and you got to do those things when you're young. You know,
Exactly.
you're not going to want to do that when you're 70 years old. I guarantee it.
Exactly. I think that's where the burning need for it now comes from too. It's because I'm not going to want to ride that gnarly of a bull. Then I'm not willing to put myself in that rough of a scenario in 20 years now. Even now, I'm like, I'll opt for an easier travel option every now and then. I'm like, man, I'm soft now. What I used to, I used to sleep. I used to just sleep on the streets. What am I doing? But yeah, exactly. It's like, that's like you said with the whole gift card thing. Like we were in the store, I remember, and I'm like, we were just, again, it was in Scandinavia and everything's expensive. And we're like, how can we keep this as cheap as possible? And we like bought the cheapest possible in a country or a continent where they're making incredible breads and cheeses. And we're trying to find the cheapest stuff. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'll treat myself here and there because I'm like, I'm in a spot. I have to try this. But we were pedaling to drop our bags off at someone's garage so they could hold our massive bike bags so we could sleep on the streets, because you can't do that really. You can't just lug around this massive bike bag. And we bought the cheapest possible bread we could find, and ended up finding out like later that day that you're supposed to bake the bread. It wasn't done cooking. And that's why it's like a half-baked bread. And that's why it's crumbling in our fingertips while we're spreading cheese on with a gift card. And I'm like, what are we doing? We had like our helmets there and people are looking like they're going to throw coins in it. And I'm like, go ahead, go for it.
Those are things that you'll carry with you your entire life and remember those times. And I will say this, that some of the happiest times of my life is when I had the least amount of stuff, you know, living in a tent for 6 months in Alaska, you know, and living on, you know, our thing was, it wasn't like I don't think we had a monetary thing, but if we could afford a big, like 40-ounce bottle of stout and some bread, we literally were living on that the majority of the summer. Like,
yep.
We were happy, you know, we had everything we needed.
Because I just feel like too, like life is so simple at that moment, because when the only thing you're worrying about is like where you're sleeping and what you're eating, like I feel like that's as like primal as it gets. That's as instinctual, like concern as it gets. Like you're not worrying about whatever bills or filling up your tank or anything. Well, sometimes it is, yeah, filling up your tank, but you're not worried about anything else that isn't real at that moment. You're like, all right, where are we sleeping tonight? What food are we eating? How are we affording this food? Like all of that. And like, again, even though all of that, when I've done it has been by choice, I'm like, I still choose to travel like that for that reason of just like, first of all, I meet more people and I learn way more, because you're focusing on essentially surviving by choice. Like you could have it easier at times if you choose to. I could not do as many trips between work at that time, you know, I could have traveled more luxuriously, but that's what led me to write stuff or shoot photos of stuff I thought was worth shooting a photo of. And I feel like I've learned more from that than anything I did elsewhere.
And you see some crazy stuff.
Yeah.
Meet some crazy people, right?
Exactly.
You just don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah. You keep talking about those people years later. It's that one interaction that they have a whole different perspective of, but you have your memory of that one conversation or that one interaction you have with that human.
Hey, I want to talk about a photograph, and this was recently shot. I don't believe this is part of your book, and maybe I'm wrong, but this is a beautiful photograph. This looks like it could be an advertisement for come visit California. Oh,
yes. So thank you. First of all, that is actually one of the stories I am going to write for the second one. A trip that normally wouldn't have much of a story behind it, but I decided, because the only lens I had for my film camera was a 50 millimeter. So to get the shot I wanted lower of the bridge, I had to walk down the side of the cliff, and I was in shorts and was just about up to my neck in poison oak and had no idea and was in the hospital for 4 days.
Oh no.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So that wasn't I was just trying to shoot a photo of the bridge, and that ended up happening. And it was funny because I was like, I've read like a lot of Jack Kerouac, and while I was walking down the side of that, I was thinking of how that's the cliff he kind of walked down. And like when he wrote about in Big Sur, he walked down there and stayed in the cabin, and he wrote about how treacherous the walk down was. I'm thinking like, yeah, this is kind of the hike he did. And I'm thinking about that and not at all thinking about these plants I had never seen before, and ended up walking away with more of a story than I wanted to. But that's in my notes in my phone for second book of writing about Big Sur. That was also after a work trip. I was in California for work, and I was like, send me home like 5 days later. Like I want to do a trip. And like kind of how I said the Oregon coast is with skate parks and just like beauty. Yeah, obviously like Northern California is too. And I was like, I wanted to hit some skate parks, and my friend had a van, and him and his girlfriend and I drove up to Big Sur, and we first crossed over the Bixby Bridge at night. And the plan was we were trying to time it. We rode all these different skate parks, and we're trying to time it so we would cross the Bixby like during like golden hour. I was like limited where I could shoot photos because of the 50 millimeter lens. And that's why I was like, let me walk down the side here and try to get this angle. And I got the photo. That isn't even the photo I shot while at on the side of the cliff. That one will go in the second book eventually. But it ended up being worth it. I was happy with the photo. But it was funny. I flew to Florida straight from there to go to this BMX event there. And then from the BMX event, we drove up to Georgia, and we're riding a bunch of skate parks there. This time we had a big enough group where we can't just like all sleep in a bowl. We can't all there's too many of us there. We can't all like just sleep in one car. So we have to get a legit campsite. So we did for the first time in like a long time. Before we left Florida for Georgia, I felt what I thought were mosquito bites on my legs and was starting to like scratch at it. And within a few days, without getting too graphic, my legs were just oozing. And I'm like, what is going on? Any creams I was buying, it was not working. Nothing was working. And I would be riding skate parks all day and then go get into a sleeping bag with my legs in that condition, which is just like, when I'm on a trip, I could care less about a shower or anything like that. But I'm like, and we even had showers at the campground, but it didn't matter because 10 minutes after the shower, my legs are just like back to the same condition. And I have to slide into the sleeping bag while it's freezing outside, not even like barely sleep. And my legs are swollen to the point that I can't even see there's no definition between my knees and my ankles. And then I didn't see my parents in like almost a year, and then get down to my parents' house in South Florida. Like I took a bus to South Florida, and I had like briefly explained what my legs were doing. And we went to an urgent care, and she's like, go to the hospital immediately. And I spent 4 days in the hospital. So more of a backstory on that photo than you expected, probably.
Dude, that's epic.
Yeah.
It was quite the experience.
And that's called that photo was called Big Sur on Film.
Yeah.
If anybody's looking for it.
Yeah. I went through about half roll of film at Big Sur because I was like, I want to like get a photo I'm happy with. And really went above and beyond to make that happen.
Yeah. And now you know what poison oak looks like.
Exactly. Actually, I still don't because it's all 30 plants down there. I don't know which one got me.
Oh, okay.
But I'm very cautious when I step off trail now.
I bet.
I almost never step off trail now.
Oh, so a botany class might be in your future.
Yes, that might
Or an
be.
app.
Yeah,
and an app at least, right?
Yeah. The scariest thing too is I thought with my limited medical knowledge, I was like, maybe this will act as a vaccine of sorts. Maybe I'm like kind of good now. But they were like, if you ever come in contact again, your body will freak out and your whole body will break out. And I'm like, sick, perfect. So I really just need to like tiptoe around. But then I told Peter this story, and he told me the story of one of his friends that got in contact with it was wearing a wetsuit after they got in contact, and the water just spread it up to their neck. And I was like, okay, at least it was only my legs.
Oh my God, that would be horrible.
I'm luckier than I thought.
Oh man.
Yeah.
There's another photograph I want to take a moment and talk about. And this is actually one that I bought when I saw you. It's a beautiful print. And, I've seen photographs of planes, framed in certain ways, but there was something that just struck me about this. And I think it's beautiful. And
yes,
this one here, it's just called Florida, right?
Yeah. So when I listed them on the FTE website for sale, I was just like, I might as well just put the location of each one. But we were actually riding all day in Tampa, and I was with a different group of riders. Some were wanting to ride skate parks, some were wanting to ride street spots. So we like rode some skate parks that day, and then ended up at this spot at the end of the day that was right next to this beach where it was right next to the airport. And everyone's riding this spot. And I'm like watching these planes go over. And I look up, I'm like perfectly framed with these palm trees. I'm like, I wonder if this will translate on a photo. And I still kind of wish I had like a little bit like more like focal length on the lens, so it could be like even tighter and the plane bigger. But the framing kind of worked out better than I expected it. And I was glad this was on black and white, because I don't think sometimes I'll have black and white in and end up in a spot with beautiful light and beautiful colors. And I'm like, I wish I had black and white. But then sometimes I'm glad I did not have coloring, because I feel like this wouldn't have been the same in color.
I think you're absolutely right. And this is why I love it. It's because it's black and white. I think the lens choice was perfect. I think, if it would have been tighter, it wouldn't have the same vibe. But yeah, I love this photograph, man. It's beautiful.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Yeah, that's another one too, where I'm like, I've seen it too much where I can't look at it with fresh eyes. But then like someone will see it and like really like it. I'm like, okay, I guess I do kind of like it. I appreciate it.
Yeah, it's great. What is one of the craziest things that you've ever seen in all your travels? I'm sure you've had a lot of crazy things that people or events, experiences. Tell us a story about something crazy that's happened to you.
One of them I didn't write about at all. I think one of them I did write about was I kind of touched on it already, but the Cambodian village was just like eye-opening. Again, that was just kind of like, that was just a tour that anyone can go on. It wasn't a crazy scenario. It was just like, you see something like that with like kids without clothes, like they're begging you. Like we were crossing the border from Thailand to Cambodia, and they're walking, tugging your shirt. There's a baby that can't even stand, propped up against the pole with an open cup in front of it, hoping people would drop money. And you're told to not, because they don't want the kids to just stay at the border their whole lives. They would just stay there and never get jobs or anything, so you walk past that and try not to give any money, which is hard. But this one I wrote about in the book it's not really it's more of a humorous scenario than anything. But we're passing through Lyon, France. Lyon, I've heard it pronounced both ways, depending where everyone is. And I was traveling with my Hungarian friends, and he knew this French girl there, and we got dinner with her, and we're hanging out. And like that whole trip, I mean, mainly any trip that we're traveling like this, at some point the small talk leads to, where you guys staying the night? And it's like, we don't know. Kind of dropping a hint, but kind of being like, I don't want to impose, but like, again, we were just like, we're setting up a tent. Do you know anywhere? Do you have, like, we're in the center of downtown. And she's like, you guys are camping tonight? And we're like, yes. Because we had my friend's smart car. It was like a 4-door smart car. And one person sleeps in the car. 2 people sleep in the tent, because it was like a 1-person tent that could kind of fit 2 people. And usually my rule of thumb, whenever we're not supposed to be sleeping somewhere, someone sleep in the car in case it gets towed, broken into, anything. There's someone in there to wake up. So she's like, well, I shouldn't really take you guys to my parents' house. 3 guys I just met, like they had only talked like on social media. So she's like, 3 guys I just met, I like not from here. It wouldn't be right to just bring you guys to my parents' house. I'm like, no, totally understand. Do you know where we could set up a tent? And she's like, yeah. There's like a lot of like open area near my house. So we follow her like pretty far out of the city, like into these, like the countryside, basically. We're passing these fields near trees and bushes, and there's like one house kind of off in the distance, but like not to the point that we felt like we were intruding at all. What we were doing at the time was, whenever we're not supposed to be there, is kind of put the tent behind the car to kind of hide it, even though it was a smart car. So the tent was the size of the car. So we pulled up on the grass and like kind of parked catty corner to the woods and put the tent behind it, and like fall asleep pretty quick. And like it amazes me sometimes like how quickly I'm able to fall asleep in those scenarios. I think a lot of it is just like the literal exhaustion from the trip, but then some of it is just like, shut your brain off. You're in this tent, you're in this car. It doesn't matter where you are outside of there. Just ignore it, or you're not gonna be able to fall asleep. Like, and so pass out pretty quick. And someone, like, there's like a knock on the window. I had like this eye mask that I took from the plane. I like never wear eye masks. But I open my eyes, I'm like, oh, I have the mask on. I like peel the mask up, and there's like someone in a trench coat standing over the window. And I'm like, all right, well, either of my friends own trench coats, and if they did, that they're not wearing it, and I don't think they brought one on this trip. I like open the door, and this guy's like screaming at me in French, and I'm like, English? He's like, looks so confused, and he's like, where are you from? And I say, America. And then the guy like smiles and like looks over at his wife or whoever was at the car, and he points, and he's like, USA, and starts laughing and like waves, shuts the door. We were in the dude's yard. We were in his front yard. We had no idea. We fully parked our car on his grass. I guess like at the time we pulled in at night, it just looked like a field next to his house, like, and kind of far from his house off in the bushes. But we were this dude just had a massive lawn. We're so far outside of the city. So for a tourist to end up in his yard was just the most baffling thing to him. He went from just furious to like, you ended up out here, like, more power to you. Go for it. Like, good night. And then the next night, the similar type of thing. We went to a few towns over. We're sleeping in the parking lot of the skate park because the skate park wasn't open. And we like parked the car caddy corner to the fence, put the tent behind it. And like, as the sun's kind of coming up, like I hear the tent unzip really quick. And I'm like, oh, it's happening again. And I look up, and there's some dude like speaking French, and like my friend crawls out of the tent, and the French guy is like, coffee? Is bringing us coffee, unlocks the skate park. Turns out he like recognized my friend from a contest he had ridden there years prior, and his daughter's taking a photo with my friend. And like, I'm like, well, I thought we were in trouble again, but it's just tables turn. They're happy to see us. We go ride the skate park, and he's fine. Like,
how cool is that, man?
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah,
it's a great story.
It was just I feel like that's not one of the crazier things that happened. It's just a funny story. I always.
Yeah. I mean, odd stuff just happens when you're traveling.
Exactly.
And especially in some foreign country, you just don't know what you're going to run across.
Exactly. And that's another one of those times where just sleeping in a skate park or sleeping wherever you can leads to a situation that's, you interact with the local, good or bad, that you didn't expect to interact with. And you end up with a story, or like I probably would have never remembered this going to that skate park or sleeping in that field if it wasn't for trespassing. Yeah.
And what people don't realize if you've never traveled abroad is that, especially like in Europe, there's not like a bunch of open space like there is here in America. Like everything is owned.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
It's not these huge national parks all over the place. Or
exactly like camping. You can't just set up anywhere. And that's what there's actually this law in Sweden that lets you, it's called like every man's law or something like that. The rule of thumb is as long as someone can't see you from their window of their home, you can sleep anywhere. And you can legally camp. And so we're like camping on this golf course, like the whole time, like this disc golf course, the whole time we were there. And like we went to Norway for a few days. Like we stayed in this other part of Sweden, came back, like, and the same dude in the same tent that was like sleeping next to us like a week prior was still there. And we're just like, I mean, we would have done it anyway, but at least now we know it's legal. Like it's cool. But like outside of that, like you can't, like you said, you can't, it's not like America where they're especially if you're anywhere near cities, like you can't just set up a tent anywhere. And we slept in this one park in Copenhagen where it was like this DIY skate park that skaters had built over the years. And our friends, we had these 15-year-olds showing us around, and they bring us to the skate park, and like both like my friend and I in the back of our heads like, we could probably like sleep here. Like this would be a spot we could set up a tent. And we like asked the skaters after a little bit, and they're like, yeah, these skaters from Spain lived here for 6 months. And we're like, oh, perfect, like we're good. So we like ride, go into town, eat, spend the $10, you know, come back. It's like pouring rain, so you have to hide in like an overhang, and it like lightens up enough. That's another one of those moments where you're just like we're under an overhang, it's raining, and we're like I think we're sleeping in this bowl. Like we haven't set up the tent yet. Like what are we doing? Like we might get kicked out, we might get arrested, I don't know. And like go back and set up the tent there, and there's this like we see this just silhouette walking towards us, and I'm like, oh, here we go. Like it wasn't in the best part of town. You had to crawl through a hole in a fence to get to this open field, walk through the field to get to the skate park, and this silhouette's like coming right at us. Dude ended up being super cool. He's talking to us, like he's like, hey, it's gonna rain tonight some more. Like he's like, there was this wood from where people were building the bowl, like next to the bowl. He's like, just take some of that and like put some like wood underneath it, get like an irrigation system. And I was like, okay, like we're like, okay, good idea. And we like set up this whole irrigation system where a bunch of 2x2s, plywood, put our tent on top of it. It worked perfect. Our tent was, I mean, the water was going underneath our tent the whole night. Ended up being some dad that just didn't want to smoke weed in front of his kids. So he came to the park. But he's like, yeah, this park used to be full of trees. He's like, but all the gypsies would sleep here. And the cops drive by and want to see them. So they cut down all the trees so people don't sleep in this park. He's like, but you guys are in the bowl, so you're fine. Like we're getting like tips from like the locals about like, you're fine to sleep here. Like this works. And again, just like another like thing we wouldn't have encountered at the hotel across the street.
Right.
That's so cool. That's awesome. How long have you had the book in your hands?
I got the book in my hands right before Christmas, and then I went back to Florida for the holidays and was like, well, no one wants to spend money after the holidays. Let me wait a month. So I had the book in my hands from like early December and released it in like early February.
So we're talking just a couple months now where people have actually had it in their hands.
Yeah.
How's it been doing? You've been moving a lot of them?
Yeah, it's been good. Like more than I expected. Like I said, I think if it wasn't for them printing way more than I ordered by accident, I would have been at the halfway point by now, which is better than I expected. Because like I said, this was more just a passion project where I'm like, if people buy it, cool. I want it done. I want to do it for myself and say I did it. But like they've done way better than I expected. And one handicap was the fact that international shipping for a book this heavy is just ridiculous. So like shipping to the UK, the cheapest option is like $52. So like the price of the book basically in US dollars. And because of COVID, shipping to, I guess they're only like importing one service right now, like, or a couple services. Shipping to Australia is like $92 for one book. So that like slowed things down. But then a distribution in France reached out and wanted to carry some books. So I sent them like a box and a half. And I got in contact with someone from Australia that like is in charge of all basically BMX like distribution within Australia. And he reached out and he's like, hey, I'd love to like help out with this, which was like, he's huge in the industry, which was like humbling, and reached out and he's like, I want to help with this. Send me a box. I'll put them on our website and send you all the money. So that's been able to get it to multiple, because some people were just spending the shipping costs. And I'm like writing an apology note. And I'm like, hey, I'm so sorry that this is not cheaper. Don't think we're making any money on this shipping. Like we're spending this much too. But, and then, some local bookstores I've gone to local shops, which I realized which I like knew before really, but obviously when you have a publisher, they do that work for you. But self-publishing, a lot of the stores have consignment programs where they're like, yeah, we'll buy the books. If they don't sell, you buy them back and then you pay us a fee. But then some stores have just bought some on the spot. So I've stuck with those and just gone to the ones that are like, yeah, we'll take two, like, and just do that. And then this local coffee shop here in Boulder is having a book release, book launch this Friday. One of my friends that works there reposted the book on social media, and his boss reached out and was like, we'd love to have an event for it. So I'll have like a bunch of prints there and everything. So that'll be cool. So better than I expected, honestly. So I'm happy with it.
Yeah, that's awesome.
But the easiest way for people to acquire one of these books, and they're $50, correct? Plus whatever the shipping is if you don't live here.
Yeah. Luckily, shipping in the States has only been like $5 anywhere in the States. So, but yeah, $50 for the book, because I was glad I was able to keep it at that price, because if I had to do it in the States, it would have been like an $80 book. And I'm like, that's ridiculous.
That's fantastic. And if somebody, as you sell these books and there's more interest generated, if somebody a publisher wanted to, publish the next round, would you be interested in going that route?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, like, as fun as it was to like self-publish it, it would be cool to just like that a publisher showed enough interest to that and it would just be a cool process to go through. I'd like to have as much say in it as possible. So I think if they were like, hey, we make every decision, then I might stray back to self-publishing. But if I'm able to like give input whenever possible, then that's definitely something I'd be happy to go with, especially like publishers being able to get books in stores easier and them deal with that rather than me going. As uncomfortable as I hate, like, it's ironic saying this when I've just talked about myself for the past 2 hours, but I hate like talking about myself or like being like, hey, look what I did. So like going into these bookstores and being like, hey, I made this book. Do you want some to carry in your store? And they're like, it takes them a second to be like, oh, okay. So you self-publish. It's not a publisher. You want us to sell. And then they explain it to me. But the first 30 seconds is so awkward. And then they call someone else from the back and I have to explain it to them. Oh, talk to this person. Okay, well, I made this book. I hate that. But yeah, I would definitely be open to a publisher. Like if that was an option for the second one, especially because I don't know how all that funding exactly works, but that might allow me to do more with it. And it's interesting to think about the fact that the first one is kind of funding the second one.
Yeah.
In some way. So.
Now this event that's happening on the 1st, that'll happen after this airs. But do you have any other events coming up as of right now that you want to mention, or if somebody wanted to, after hearing this, wanted you to come speak and possibly carry the book, what's the best way for them to reach out to you?
Oh, they can. I mean, yes, no specific events planned after this one this Friday, but I would be happy to do any type of future events because I'm glad, like, this was fun. I'm glad to talk about anything. And I feel like social media or email would be the best way. The Instagram and social media for the company is FTE.collective. And my personal social media is Robert BMX 895. And yeah, reaching out through social media would be totally fine. I'd be happy to do any type of events. It's cool that anyone, like I said, this was just a passion project that I got carried away with. So the fact that anyone even owns it is crazy to me. The fact that anyone has sold is wild to me, that someone's looking at this vulnerable piece of project that I did.
Well, I think it's fantastic. And I wish you continued success. I think you will. You keep doing this, you'll have more success. I think by the time volume 2 rolls around, I don't want to jinx anything, but I love it, man. And I think it's really, it's a fantastic passion project. Obviously it resonates with people, not only in the BMX community, but just people in general. And the photography is beautiful. I don't have a copy, so I haven't read what you've written, but I think it's really intriguing, and I really like what you're doing with it.
I appreciate it. Yeah, that does mean a lot, because it really has just been like I said many times throughout it, I'm like, what am I doing? Who cares about this? But the feedback has been nice, and it has been cool just to be. And it made me realize too that I'm like, it doesn't have to, like, I could just do this for myself. If people are interested, people will check it out. Like, there doesn't have to be a huge established market or anything. Obviously social media helps, but like, it's just cool that anyone has any interest in what I do. Like, it's cool seeing that, like, all my friends that, like, some closer than others, like some people I've met once and they're interested enough to like buy it and read about it. And I'm like, oh wow, they're about to know so much more about me. That's interesting. Let alone when all the people I've never met that have bought one. I'm like, that's like, it's so interesting to think about, which is, again, like, so I've done all this kind of just for myself. So the fact that anything has reached other people is cool. And some people have said that, like, yeah, I've been wanting to do like something with my photos. Like, and I'm like, yes, please. Like, that's how I ended up here. Please print stuff, like, do stuff with it, like, make it happen.
And I think young people, if they get a chance to look at your book, may be inspired by it and do something very similar, or have that same kind of experiences of, writing or traveling or any of that. So that's cool.
I mean, that'd be awesome. That'd be all I could hope for, because that's what led me to here too, is just like looking at other people's work. And I'm like, whether it's just some random disposable photos shot on the road and put into a little zine, or reading anything I read, like whatever I've read throughout writing it has like inspired me too, and changed how, like, I had to stop reading it, because anytime I read it, I would change things depending on like what I was reading at the time. Like, when I would be reading something more casual, I would kind of just speak more plainly, and then I'd read something more profound or poetic, and then I'm like, I need to beef this part up a little bit, and I would constantly change. And like I said, I was reading a lot of Kerouac when I was putting this together, and his way of talking about the road and traveling in general and being a bum, like I'm like he's just getting, you feel like you're reading his journal sometimes. It's getting horrible, and just, I'm like, all right, like, people have been doing this. Like, not that I hate to even sound like a comparison. That's speaking purely as an inspiration. Like, he like that stuff like that inspires me.
Yeah.
And I have another friend that's put out a novel and 2 of his poetry books, and I'm like, he's just putting it out there because he wants to. And I'm like, that stuff has inspired me to just like, you know what, there doesn't have to be a huge reason behind anything. Just do a project I want to do and put it out there. If it does well, cool. If it doesn't, it's still done. And I did it.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah. Go ahead, Todd.
I was just going to say, I think in turn, you're going to inspire. I think this is the perfect time for it, as we hopefully come out of this, we're at the tail end of this pandemic, hopefully it inspires other people to go pursue their dreams and at the very least, go explore the world. Right.
Yeah. I mean, that's, I could push that as much as anything, is just make it happen and get out there, because you really like, it changes you forever, I feel like. And I know I've pushed more towards the bare bones, roughing it kind of travel, but anything, just getting out there, I think is just like, your perspective will never go back to how it originally was. It changes you forever. I mean, even think like when something goes wrong on a trip, might suck at the time, but you're going to learn from that. It's going to be funny later, hopefully. And you're going to be a different person forever because of it.
Yeah.
Like, good or bad. I think regardless, you're going to learn a lesson. Even when I've been miserable and stuff, even that I didn't write about or put in the book, I'm just like stuff where I'm just like, what? I wish I could snap my fingers and be home right now. But now I laugh about it. And now it's like, all right, well, it happened. It's done. And now you realize how easy you have it back home sometimes. Like, and that's not the case for everyone, of course, but speaking for myself, I realize I'm choosing to put myself in these situations. So
I think the world needs more of that. I think we'd be better off on this planet if people, had a little bit of that adventure,
Yeah, I think people think their reality in their world is the reality in the world, and getting yourself out there and seeing that there's a whole lot more out there could humble some people and change their perspective on a lot and learn to be open towards others.
Yeah, builds empathy.
Yeah,
that's for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Which there's not always a ton of. So
no.
Robert, thank you so much for the time that you spent with us this evening talking about this book and all your adventures that you've had. And I just wish you the very best. And if there's anything that we can do to help you along with this, I'm happy to do it. We say it all the time. Time is the most valuable thing that we have. You're obviously taking advantage of your time and doing worthwhile things and pursuing these passion projects of yours. So thank you very much.
No, thank you guys so much for having me. This has really been awesome. It's nice. We just had a normal conversation about it all, and it was so cool. And like I said about when I was writing it, it made me like change my perspective on, or like I realized how much my perspective have changed on trips, like talking about the process now of the book, like, because a lot of it I'm just thinking of it and it's all just in my head, but verbalizing a lot of it in detail makes me realize what I've learned through the process of it all. So thank you guys for having me and giving me a platform to talk about the book. I appreciate it. It really means a lot. And like I said, throughout the whole time, I'm like, who cares about this book? So the fact that I'm doing something like this is really cool. And thank you for being interested enough to have me. This really means a lot. I appreciate this.
Yeah. And, Peter Bergman is the one that turned us on to you by telling the story of how you and him would hook up and talk about publishing and how you would just like disappear for a while and then come back with needing more information. So it was great to put a face to the story, and really just makes me want to go out and do another. I used to call them, Todd and I would do these day trips when we'd visit each other called Wes and Todd's Big Adventure. Well, we need to do another one of those. So
yes, bring back the big adventures.
That's right. Yeah.
I support it.
Yeah. We'd go do little photo safaris of our own. So
exactly.
Makes me want to go do another trip, man.
That is
Thanks
awesome.
for sharing.
Of course. Please make that happen. That is awesome to hear. That really means a lot.
Again, check out the website, FTEcollective.com, where you can order Robert's beautiful book, For the Experience Volume 1, along with all the other swag that they have on that website. And you can follow Robert on Instagram at RobertBMX895. For the Tenant Podcast, I'm Todd Pearson.
And I'm Wes Brown. Have a great week.